welcome to the first of our budget presentations. Today's date is Tuesday, June the 11th. Mr. Carlson.
Good afternoon. Madam Chair, councilors. Thank you for having us down here. As we all know, the mayor presented the budget, kind of a larger vision of how we're all going to work together to advance community outcomes and improve lives in Lincoln. Today, departments will be offering additional information and details on those investments being made on those services and programs. We'll meet again tomorrow, essentially the same time. Just want to point out that we'll have a number of presentations from a number of different departments. It's the beginning of the conversation. Some departments have 15 minutes, some have 30 minutes. We understand that may not be enough time for you to get all the information you want. It's the kickoff. We have budget staff here, and myself will all be here recording any questions so that we can make sure we get you any follow-up information or materials that you need or set up additional meetings that may be required. So this is the beginning of the process that eventually ends in the August 5th public hearing, where people will have a chance to weigh in on the work that we've been doing together. So with that, I think I will kick it off and turn it over to Mr. Chad Blaha from Building and Safety.
Yay. Love the partial cheer, Benny. Thank you. Like John said, I'm Chad Blaha. I'm Director of Building and Safety. So thanks for the opportunity to talk a little bit about each of our departments as directors here. And I feel like every time I do this, I'm marveled at how simple sometimes mine seems compared to like Liz and somebody. So hopefully I can make it sound simple for you guys today. Here is just an example of our mission statement here at Building and Safety. We're focused on promoting high quality of life for Lincoln's residents through efficient, collaborative application of housing, construction, and life safety codes. Most of the conversations that I've had with you guys kind of tells that story a little bit. Here is a brief description of how we are organized as a department. We have 3 primary divisions. We have a development review or building services division that's comprised of our building inspectors and our plan review staff. They have everything to do with the structural components of buildings and permitting here in Lincoln, from the managing the initial applications from customers, reviewing the plans for code conformance, and then actually the building inspectors out in the field making sure it gets constructed to those plans. We have an administrative division, handles our accounting, our customer service, our technology needs, and also has our staff that serve our customers face-to-face, or so to speak, at the counter and our phone lines. We have our 3rd division, which is our inspections division. It includes our plumbing, electrical, and mechanical sections. We each have chief inspectors and a team of inspectors. They have the housing. This group has the housing preservation inspectors and a chief. They also have the Bureau of Fire Prevention with a chief and a number of inspectors. And here's just a little bit of a breakdown between those different divisions and how many FTEs we have. If you notice, we have some decimal places. We're fortunate in Building and Safety to have a number of retired personnel that are willing to come back and serve on an on-call basis for inspection needs during either high workload volumes or during vacations or even extended illnesses, which we have had. You may also notice we do have an additional FTE put in the proposed budget for the next 2 years, and I'll address that a little bit later on. Here's our funding sources, a little description of our funding sources. As most of you know, we are predominantly a fee-funded department. We do things for customers, and they pay us money to do those things. And it's consistently about an 15% split between the fee-funded portion of our budget and the general fund portion of our budget. And these graphs kind of bear that out. The general fund portion, as a reminder, the general fund portion that goes to support our activities within the some of the activities within the Bureau of Fire Prevention, the arson investigations, some of the fire code complaint investigations, those things. It also covers the housing code complaint investigations that we do annually. Total expenditures, as you can imagine, we're a service-oriented department, and so the vast majority of our expenditures have to do with personnel services, salaries, benefits, all of those things. We have a couple of other a little bit larger items, self-explanatory, materials and supplies, of course. Other services and charges, that's kind of our catch-all. That covers our administrative service charges for other departments. It covers our IT and data processing charges from IS. The vehicles, we have 36 inspectors that are out driving vehicles every day, so we have a pretty high volume of vehicle charges that we have to account for, rent, all those things. And then the transfer out is kind of brand new. That is a portion of our revenue we collect for our meterhood permit applications. Now, urban development does the vast majority of the work involved in utilizing those, so that's what this transfer out is. We are transferring out that revenue that we intake over to urban, and I'm sure Peter will address that a little bit with his presentation. So those are our expenditures a little bit. And these expenditures in the proposed budgets go to help us fulfill our role in the strong public and private partnership we have with the Lincoln development and business community, and which that partnership helps to promote the economic growth that we've seen here in Lincoln. And just to describe that growth a little bit in terms of how building and safety responds, this is a graph that shows the total number of new construction permits we've seen over the last couple of years. We've had some historically high years recently in the 21 and time frame, and we had a little bit of a dip there, as you can see, and then the 2024 is projected to rebound from that dip. So we're still operating at a high level of permit activity coming into the city of Lincoln. And this includes all new single-family houses, all new townhomes, new duplexes, new apartment buildings, and new commercial business buildings are included in this graph. Here's just a little bit of a breakdown, further breakdown with those numbers that include the other kind of permits that aren't new construction, where you have remodels, additions to buildings, or other small projects like outbuildings, sheds, decks, so on and so forth. And so these budgets, with this budget, we are also asking for a couple of other things, like I mentioned, the additional FTE. So this budget will, pardon me, help us to enhance and maintain our level of service that the residents of Lincoln, expect and deserve. With that, like I said, additional housing inspector we're asking for with this budget. The housing inspection section has operated with a chief and 4 inspectors for about 2 decades now, and we have seen, you've heard in recent years, the historic number of apartment buildings that have come through and are being built. Well, that staff is charged with administering our apartment licensing program. You've also, some of you have been around long enough to be here when we implemented the short-term rental licensing program. That is a program that was assigned to these housing inspectors to administer and maintain. So just with the increased workload, increased activity, and just the growing city, we have felt that it was time to add another housing inspector. This housing inspector is going to be fee-funded. We have determined that there was, with the increase in apartment activity and the licenses for those in the short-term rental license fees, that we are able to consider it a fee-funded position, so we will not be asking for additional general fund revenue to account for that position. And the photos there are an example of what this staff does. You have a before picture and an after picture on the important work that this staff does. And this illustrates, maybe not necessarily a specific budget ask, but an example of what we do on an ongoing basis. We to help improve the experience for our customers and our staff on a regular basis. We implemented a new electronic application and plan submittal and then review system within our department last fall. And this system has already demonstrated to improve staff review and customer efficiency. At the time this was implemented, at the end of the previous fiscal year, we were averaging close, and this will show up in a upcoming slide, but we were averaging about 20 days for a construction or for a new commercial permit review on the first review cycle. Since the implementation of this system, and it's not all due to the system, there are some other things that contributed, but we are now down to, as of last Friday, ran the numbers again, we are averaging about 11 and a half days for that first round of review for commercial permits. And that's the average since the implementation back in October. And as of today, I checked again, our slowest reviewer is right at about 11 days. So we're right in that number. Here are some of the ways we measure our success in building and safety. The first one has to do with same-day inspections. Probably a better name would be next-day inspections, but we call it same-day inspections. That's because you can request an inspection up through 7 o'clock this morning and get that inspection done. Our goal is to have that 95% of the time done. We reach it at 98%, and that's, as you can see, almost 90,000 requests for inspections a year. Second one has to do with our housing complaint response time. It's similar. We want to get out to and inspect those housing complaints within 2 working days of that complaint coming in, and we reach that goal 93% of the time. Our goal is 95%. The additional housing inspector presumably will get us back up to that goal. Related to that one is each one of those housing inspections could possibly result in violation notices. So we want to get those violation notices sent out within 24 hours of the inspection. We hit it 96% of the time. Our goal is 95%, so our guys do a really good job in that regard. Then the last performance measure has to do with that first round review time. It just illustrates that our actual for the 22-23 year was 20 days, and starting roughly at the beginning of this current fiscal year to date, we are down to about 11 and a half days. And so with that, that's my presentation. You can handle questions. Yes.
So you were talking about your goal of getting down to, it says 10 days, but you're at 11 days. When you talk about commercial plan review, are you also talking about residential houses?
No.
Okay.
Residential houses, they're getting their reviews done in like 3 days. So
And
that
do
is
you have
not-
a goal for that as well?
Our goal is 5.
Okay.
We've, over the time period that me being here, we've rarely been above 5. So,
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Councilman Shob.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Director. Would you go back to the last 2 slides? I want to make sure I got the numbers right. I'm going to call that timeliness. And if they get once you're assigned the inspection for housing, by 7 a.m., you get it done pretty much the same day? And what percentage
7
was
a.m.
that?
when I mentioned the same day inspections, that had to do with all the construction permits. So mechanical permit inspection, building permit inspection, those are requested in
In the system?
some of the similar ways as the housing complaints, but there's additional avenues to request the housing code complaints.
Okay.
The housing code complaints aren't always the same day.
That was the
I
second
should've-
category.
yeah,
No,
yep.
no, I got that.
I did
Yeah.
not clarify that. Thank you for asking that question.
Yeah, no, there was one for housing, and then there was
Yes.
one for apartment building inspections and something, yeah.
Yep, yeah, the housing code inspections in the
Housing
apartment,
code.
yep.
Those were 2 different things.
Yep.
But the numbers were pretty good, like 98 and 94. That's
Yeah.
what I'm not as young as you. I can't see that very well.
I know, they come through kind of small,
98 and 94. And one of them was within the same day, the one of them was within 2 days.
within 2 days, yes.
Thank you very much. That's why I want just a little clarification on that. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Welcome. Any other questions? Councilman Bowers.
I just had a couple of quick questions. And, you know, we've only had access to the budget for about 22 hours, so you might have answered some of this, and I don't want to take up too much time because we're already over our 15 minutes for this specific department. But for, so personal services, is that staff or is that something else? Because I see that it goes from about 7 million for fiscal year 2024 to about 8 million in fiscal year 2026.
Yes, that is everything to do with staff, like salary, insurance, benefits, all of those, and those are assigned to us from finance and HR.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And then for like materials and supplies,
Yep.
you know, it doubles in cost from fiscal year 2024 to fiscal year 2020 or 2025 essentially. Is that like, can you just help me understand that a little bit more?
Those are anywhere from some equipment purchases, like some of our inspector groups have specific equipment needs. As an example, our mechanical inspectors have to have natural gas detector things. So those kind of specialized equipment that go along with each one of our inspection divisions are included in that. It also is the boring paper, apparel, pencils, pens, all that kind of jazz that go along with operating within the department.
Cool. Then the last question that I have for transfer out,
Mm-hmm.
can you help me understand what that means? Because I see that there's kind of variation because it goes like 3,000 in 23, 0 in 24, and then 62 in 25 and 26. What does that mean for transfer out?
Okay, transfers out for us has meant if we do a lot of intaking of permit fees, some not for just our department, some for other departments. LTU, we intake some of the permit fees for those, some of the curb permits, curb cuts, and those sort of things. So we use that category as we transfer some of our revenue to other departments. In this particular case, the large sum, the $60,000, that is the estimated revenue for the meter hoods that we intake the revenue for. And since urban development is doing the vast majority of the work associated with administering those permits, we are transferring out from our revenue to urban development. So we have to show it in our budget. That was just a significant change in our budget. So we will show that revenue in our budget because we're intaking it, but then we're showing the transfer out. So it's a net zero for us, but it'll be a net increase for urban.
Gotcha. Thanks so much.
Yep.
Anyone else? Then I have one last question as a follow-up to what Councilman Bowers asked. When your materials and supplies costs went up, did that reflect the change from paper review to online review? Did the equipment go up?
It likely represented a cycle of equipment purchases for our various divisions. I can get you more detailed information if you want to get some very specific items in there. Just like every other group of equipment wears out. It likely coincided with a cycle of needing additional the bigger ticket items. But I can get more detailed information for that if you would like.
Yeah, pardon me. I'm sorry. I'm just thinking about future cyclic bumps
Yep.
because of equipment.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Welcome, Director Carey.
Good afternoon, council members. Thank you very much for some of your time today. We'll begin our page-by-page review of the zoning code right now. We'll probably need some more time after this. I would not do that to you, but do want to thank you for some time today for us to go through what we do as a planning department and what our budget is saying for the proposed next 2 years. Want to start out with some of the outcomes that we strive for as a department, and the four that are listed here, we're talking about economic development and health and safety, as well as infrastructure work, an equitable and inclusive community. This is reflective of the fact that our department, planning department, really does touch a wide range of activities throughout the city and the county, for that matter, because we are a city-county department. So very proud of that, and it really is reflective of the fact that we are responsible for a lot of items that impact most departments, if not all, in some way. And then when we go to our mission statement, I'd like to highlight the word facilitate that's in our mission statement. We do a lot of work that convenes people and departments and programs and projects, and we have those discussions. We make sure we're engaging the community and having a meaningful interaction with stakeholders as well as other departments. So We take that very seriously, and I'm confident to state today that we do that very well. And I want to continue to do that. And then this budget proposal reflects the efforts to make sure we're funded to a level that allows us to continue to do the good work that we do. Our values listed here, most of these items are core work items that the planning department does. They are reflected in the actual charter in many ways, many of them, I should say. And so, for example, we are just coming off of being responsible for pulling together the 6-year capital improvement program. That is a specific charter task for the planning department. We're proud to do that work. We think it's extremely important work to do, and it's a good example of that convening and facilitating work that we do on an ongoing basis. And obviously that has an impact on the budget proposal that's in front of you today as well. So we do this work, we are proud to do this work, and I like to say that we are small but mighty. We do a lot of work in a small department. And the good news is that we are efficient with the people's dollars, the taxpayer dollars that come through us. We do a very good job of making sure that we are efficient with that and we get a lot of good work done. Organizationally, we'll talk about a little more detail in the next few slides, but we have a staff of 21 FTEs. We are organized, again, pointing out that we are a city-county department, so we do work with the county board and the county government side of things, as well as the mayor and the city council. We are broken into an administrative arm, which is from the director down to, we have a administrative staff that really does a lot of the work to get things done on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. And then we split out to development review, which is really the incoming applications mostly for active projects and development that happens. And then long-range planning, which is where we get into the comprehensive plan work, as well as that capital improvement programming work that I mentioned earlier. And then all of that is supported by our information technology folks, where we talk about geographic information systems and a lot of data development and maintenance. And so combined, this is how we organize our department and we make sure that we're getting the work done. I'd like to highlight the performance measures that we do identify in the budget. And this is a good kind of overview of the work that we do and some of the outcomes that we have that happen on a day-to-day basis and a year-to-year basis. The first one there is we talk about the travel time to work, and this is a census measure, so we can get the data like that pretty easily. What it really is reflective is the quality of life that we have here in Lincoln. We have very short commute times compared to other similar size and larger cities especially, and we identify a goal of 60% or more to have less than 20-minute commutes. And we actually are above that, and right now, if you want to call it a trend, we're actually creeping up even higher, approaching 64, 65%. And that's obviously a good story to tell, but it is reflective of the fact that we want to make sure that we're growing efficiently and not in a sprawling manner, and a lot of our policies and efforts go towards that. So that is a good measure for us to kind of keep an eye on, and we do look at that. Another one I'll point out is the lot supply that we identify. We, for many years, have said at least a 10-year lot supply, unit supply for residential growth. That actually, we're reporting from, the actual from last year was 17 years, so actually going up from where it's been. I can report today, year to date, it's up to 18 years now. And so there's some different things going on there, but we do track that information. We know how many units have been approved and are available for development, and we know the physical location of those units and lots. So we are well above that kind of the minimum that we are tracking, and it will fluctuate over the years, but we're at a high point right now, and I think that's reflective of both the interest in development as well as the amount of applications and reviews that we've done recently in the last few years. So we have done a lot of work and set ourselves up for growth moving into the next several years. Reflective of that is the fact that we have increased over the last 7 years, our average number of applications that we're receiving and processing is up 15%. It's basically maintained that high level of activity. In the current year, we're seeing probably an actual increase over last year, which was a very high year. So we are processing a large amount of applications, especially compared to 7, 8, 9 years ago. And so, again, pointing back to the fact that we still have 21 FTEs, we're not increasing our staff. A lot of this is due to the fact that I'm very proud of our staff. They are very good at what they do, for one thing. But also, we have, over that time frame, we've really automized and digitized and made electronic reviews basically the norm now. And that investment in our process has really paid off so that we can be much more efficient with our reviews. If we hadn't done that and that level of applications was coming in, I think we would not see as much of a positive result that we are seeing. This slide points out the increasing trend in residential growth that's happening. These are the actual new residential unit permits that have come in on a year-to-year basis. This is showing the last 14 years, and I can say with confidence that this year we're seeing another high year of activity and development for residential. What you really want to look at is that top line, the yellow mustard color line, and that you'll see that trend line is really upwards for the last 14 years. So we really are increasing our average amount of residential units that are happening. And I will point out as well, the last 3 years is the highest 3-year number, over 7,500 new units permitted in the history of Lincoln. So we've never seen a 3-year period as high as what we've just experienced. And the year before that 3-year period, and then if you look at the current year, so a 5-year snapshot, we're going to have probably over 11,000 new residential units permitted over a 5-year period, which is a very large amount. And so it's reflective of the fact that we are growing, and we are able to provide between building and safety and planning, we're providing the support to make sure that we can meet the demands of growth in that fashion. Directly related to that is population growth, obviously. We have our projections from 2020 for the new comprehensive plan that we are continuing to use. The most recent census estimate has us just under 295,000 as of 1 year ago, July 1 of 23. I would point out that I, along with my staff, feel like it's actually higher than that. We think they're undercounting Lincoln. There seems to be a bias against Midwest cities right now with the census, but we'll get that figured out in 2030 with the census. But I think what we can confidently say is that within the next 2 to 3 years, that we will actually be over 300,000 persons living in the city limits of Lincoln. So that growth comes along with a physical footprint that's increasing. We annex our new developments here in a regular basis, and that's a good policy as well that we have. So we have, since 2010, increased by 13 square miles. That equates to, historically, we are roughly increasing our footprint by about 1 square mile per year. And that continues this year as well. And I would also point out that our infill and redevelopment, which is a policy that we are supportive of in our comprehensive plan, we have for several years now seen over 25% of infill happening with residential new construction. So that is happening as well. So that speaks back to being efficient with our infrastructure and making sure we're making good decisions with our investments. We start by saying significant changes in the proposed budget. I wouldn't say there are really significant changes. We're not changing our requested amount of FTEs. We are requesting and proposing a 3% fee increase each of the 2 years of the budget. This is based on about 5 years ago, we made a decision to use the consumer price index for the Midwest region as a guide for what type of fee increase percentages we would ask for. So as of March of this year, we were right at 3%. It's hovering around that now as well still. We feel that that's a good way for us to not have large increases over like every 4th or 5th year. And it is matching at least a real cost increase for services in a general sense. So that is part of this budget proposal. We are also proposing a new urban design review fee of $150. We identified over the last several years that urban design reviews for our different design committees, so that's Urban Design Committee, that's the Capital Environs District Committee, as well as Historic Preservation. We have an increasing amount of reviews happening, and this is just a way to try to capture back some of that cost. It really would only be about 20% of those, because we would not be charging a fee to other governmental agencies that are coming through the process for reviews, which would be ourselves, or the state has several of those types of projects that come to us, nor would we be double charging those that are coming through because of their TIF projects that are already in the process already. So there'd be about 20% or about 25 per year that would be given this charge, and it's a way for us to cover some of the costs that we are incurring for those reviews that are happening. Specifically, 21 FTEs today, 21 FTEs being requested in the budget for the 2 years. I will point out that in 2010, we were at 22, and we were higher than that previous to 2010. So this is reflective of the fact that we have automated a lot of our review processes and made them, we have invested in the programs that allow us to be very efficient with the volume of reviews and applications that we're processing. I will put a caveat out there that we may not be able to hold the line on 29 FTEs forever. So 2 years from now, we might be asking for something different. But right now, I feel confident in the staff positions that we have and the people that we have to get the work done. Funding sources is pretty straightforward for planning. We are a general fund funded department. You'll see that we have a request of about just under 2.4 million in year one of the budget proposal and a little bit over that for year two. So incremental increases each year. I will point out there's a note at the bottom of the slide I think is a very important one. 43% of this budget is covered by other revenues, including the fees that we are anticipating to receive from our applications, as well as intergovernmental investments that come to us either from the county, they help pay for our budget to do the county work, as well as we have some federal dollars that come in to help fund the Metropolitan Planning Organization work that we do. So, as well as some historic preservation work. So 43% of this cost that you see here is actually covered by other sources of funding. So the hit from general fund is not that full amount. So I feel good about that as well. When we look at our breakdown of expenditures, that we are very personnel heavy. That's the reality of our department. So the vast majority of the cost to the budget is for the people that we have on staff to do the work. I will point out that we have other services and charges that amount to about 17% of our budget. And those are things that are out of our control. We get charged for rent from the building commission, for example, as well as the necessary and important work that IS does for us, but that's a charge to our department as well. We're happy to pay for that, but that's just kind of an explanation of how those numbers break down. Successes in the past year. Feel very good about getting the capital improvement program done. That's a big lift for us whenever we do that. We feel good about that process, and we look forward to doing it again in 2 more years. We did do the important commercial parking text amendment that removed a lot of those minimum parking requirements. We're excited to have gotten that accomplished as well. And again, we are just doing a continued elevated level of application reviews and processing. So that is a success for all of us involved. Looking forward to this 2-year budget period going forward. We do expect to have a continued elevated level of applications coming in. That's not slowing down. We are expecting that to continue. We do expect growth and development to continue to happen. It's never really stopped for us. It ebbs and flows at different rates, but it's still happening. So we're prepared for that. We are going to continue to implement the comprehensive plan as it exists today. We will be beginning the process of doing a 5-year update of that comprehensive plan in this next 2 years. We look forward to that and working with you on that as well. And we also, tonight is our first public meeting for the University Place neighborhood plan that we're working on. And we're looking forward to that work as well. So with that, I'll answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions? Councilman Bowers.
Again, we've only had access for about 22 hours to the budget, so I'll probably have some more follow-up questions later, and we're already past the 15 minutes that you had, so I'm just going to kind of rapid fire some stuff out, but I hope to have a conversation later.
Okay.
So for the urban design review fee of $150, it's going to be new. That won't be charged to other governmental agencies. Why not charge the state that fee if we're going to be charging private companies that? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I understand the question. We have historically not charged fees for other governmental agencies when they have to do a process through us. It's in some ways the other government agencies are not compelled to follow our local zoning regulations and things like that. So
We're all aware.
So it's kind of in that same vein where it's more just to make sure that by not charging the fee, we kind of ensure that there's at least a participation in the process.
Gotcha.
So that's part of the strategy there. And again, these dollar amounts for the fees would not cover the cost of the department anyway, so they're not to that level. But we are looking for at least to recoup some of those costs.
Gotcha. I just have 2 other quick questions. So you're working with less FTEs now than what you had in 2010. More?
Less.
Less FTEs than you had in 2010? One less. Okay. And then the second question that I had is, with the fee structure going up 3% each year for the next 2 years, how does our fee structure measure, and you might have covered this in your thing when I was jotting notes down, other municipalities similar to Lincoln?
Yeah, and so we do look at that. In particular, we look at the, city of Omaha and the Sarpy County cities. We're in the same, definitely in the same ballpark
Okay.
of that. And I guess I can help give you some context for what a 3% increase would be. So if there was going to be a change of zone application, as an example, for a small one, for 1 acre or less, today it's $462 to apply for that. A 3% increase would increase that to $476, so an increase of $14.
Okay.
So that's the kind of there's different fees
Sure,
amounts,
sure.
but that's to give you an idea of what it means.
And we're not like an outlier
No.
on, okay. All right, cool. Thanks.
Sure.
Any other questions? Oh, Councilman Weber.
Thank you, Chair Washington. Director Carey, I'd be interested, not now, since we are over time, getting more information on the 3% increase in fees, the impact that would have on other fees. I know you gave one example. I would just appreciate seeing that across the board,
Okay.
what level of impact that will have on the fees. I want to talk specifically about creating the urban design review fee of $150. What costs are typically incurred by your department? I may have missed it in your presentation during this. And right now, correct me if I'm wrong, we have no urban design review fee at all, right?
Correct.
Yep.
Yep. So the costs that are incurred by the department, that a portion of which would be recouped from the $150 fee, would be the advertising and the staff time to hold a meeting, hold a discussion with the Urban Design Committee, and to process that information. So there would be mailings involved, advertising of the meeting is involved in that. And again, it's incremental because it's not necessarily an entire cost of a meeting for one item, but
Yeah.
those are the costs that are incurred by the department that otherwise wouldn't be covered by another application, like if the project was a TIF project that's kind of following its own track over here and has applied for those applications already. We wouldn't charge an additional fee for that, but for those standalone items, we would be charging the $150.
And so then the $3,750 that I could bring in projected, would that offset the fee, the costs incurred in its entirety, or just in part?
It would be in part.
Okay.
It would not be would not cover the full cost. Because it'd be a small segment of the overall number of applications, it probably is covering a larger percentage than would otherwise be the case, but it wouldn't be covering all the costs.
And then my last question about this fee is that something that is typical for cities like Lincoln to do, to have a fee in reviewing urban design?
Yes, and it really does depend on, many other cities have fees like that for those types of reviews.
Okay.
But again, it's a lot different than if we were structured similar to the way building and safety is, where they have 85% of their costs covered by their fee structure. We're not set up that way. We don't even approach that percentage. So we're not trying to do that. We're just trying to make it a little bit more of a way to cover some of the costs. We're not trying to get to 85 or 100%.
Awesome. Thank you, Director. That's
Sure.
all I had.
All right. I just would like, when you're looking at the 3%, if you could go back in time and also show where fees were before. I know when we've talked about adding new fees or increasing fees, there have been moments where there have not been any fee increases for a number of years, and then we go, oh, we have to catch up. And so if you could just do the chronology of that so we have a bit more of a context,
Sure, I
that
can do
would be
that.
very helpful.
Okay.
And with that, let's move on to the next department. And thanks so much, Director Carey.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I have a question.
Oh,
I like these presentations, the PowerPoints. It would be great if I could see them. I can't read from 7, 8 feet away.
yeah.
Can we at least have copies of these sent to us from the presenters?
Yes.
Emailed to us?
They are available for us online right now. And though there was a slide actually that was in David's presentation that's not in the book, but we can get all of those.
Okay.
I don't know if the PowerPoints are available on the. Yeah.
Thank you, James.
PowerPoints aren't available online.
Yeah.
If you want, I can hook this up to your computer and then bring it right here so you can have your own.
I think that'd be helpful for like tomorrow to have them
I don't have
available.
a specific copy.
like after today and then for tomorrow.
That would be great, if I could see it there.
Do you mind if I touch
Yeah.
your computer?
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe the size of the screen, so when you're doing your slides, if you wouldn't mind
Yeah.
trying to expand them just a little
Yeah, I
bit,
can't.
magnify them. We just have to remember to take into consideration the average age of the eyes up here.
I didn't bring my binoculars.
And welcome, Director McIntyre. All right, if you give us just one moment.
You can go ahead and get started.
Go ahead?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to come present my HR budget. I
That way.
know that I feel like every time I come in front of you, we keep refining our mission, but I think we've got it now. Very short and concise. So we really want to inspire a culture where public servants thrive. That's really, I think, where we've landed from a mission standpoint. Last time I was in front of you, you guys made some investments in my department. And I really want to thank you for those. We are not asking for any additional investments in FTE or anything like that this time around. We have 30 FTE and 1 half-time, very part-time intern in the department. And those investments in our people have enabled us to attract and retain talent, enhance productivity, foster a positive work environment and culture, ensure legal compliance, promote diversity and inclusion, support employee well-being, drive innovation, and help align our talent or our people with the goals of the city, the strategic plan of the city. So these factors collectively have contributed to long-term success and sustainability of the city. Here's my budget, and I know these are really tiny numbers. I think the big highlights of this screen is 57% of the budget in HR is our self-funded health plan for our employees. The next big chunk of the budget after that is police and fire pension at about 27%. 3% of my budget makes up the employees' salaries and day-to-day operation. So my team is a small chunk of our overall HR budget. Do you want me to pause there? Okay. The budget increases about 2.6% between the first year and the second year. And that's really just those operational increases we see year over year. This is our total expenditure budget. In this expenditure budget, you're going to see that about $6.7 million is for salaries or personnel services. But I want to make sure that I clarify about $3 million of that is payments to our police and fire pension employees who are in active drop. So when they hit that active drop phase, that money comes through and flows through, and you will see it in that line. Only about $3 million or half of that is for the actual employees' salaries, benefits, and then the day-to-day operations of HR. All right, so this budget supports human-focused talent strategies that help us create an irresistible organization. And we just started tracking a lot more metrics in the last 2 years. So some of my data, I wish I had 14 or 15 years worth of data to demonstrate some of this, but a lot of it has been what we've been able to collect in the last 2 years. So we've been starting to track our talent acquisition efforts, and it is really crucial for us to have strong talent acquisition efforts over the next couple of years because we're facing a couple significant changes. One is the number of retirees we have and the number of folks, they've had long careers, they're walking out the door. But then the second piece of that challenge is the trend we're seeing in the workplace. The talent walking back in, they need to have a lot more digital literacy. They're going to be tasked with working with innovations in technology we've not been faced with before, like AI. We see that in the workplace now. We know it's being used. So the kind of staff we're trying to hire looks differently. We've been successful in strengthening the applications and the number we have with a 20% increase from 23 to 24. On the gold bar, we're on track to continue to strengthen those number of applications of talent that we have coming through our door. And we think it's really important to then set our new hires up for success. Once we get them in the door, that's step one of the whole process. So we are launching a new onboarding campaign. That starts June 27th. It's about a 3-hour program, But one of the things when we went out and we did a lot of employee listening and what would you like, what is missing, is really that onboarding. They don't get a good acclimation to our values and our culture, the benefits available to them, really the value of that job they just took with the city. So we are going to be launching that this month actually. So let me see. And I want to make sure I hit all the high points of what I wrote. So we're really looking at how do we make sure employees know the vibrant quality of life that's afforded to them through having a career with the city. We also invested in developing our talent. We really stood up, and that was just last year in 2023, a learning and organizational development team. This team, in the short time they've been constructed, has ensured that almost everyone, 99% of our employees, have had a learning opportunity in the last year, which was the key thing we really wanted to deliver on, is how do we start strengthening the talent we have in place. Of the talent we launched, the fundamental training is a big key piece of that. And that training, we've launched 5 courses, and those have really been focused on promoting a safe workplace and positive workplace. We have 2 that will be coming up. One is on our data privacy, the other one is on information security. So it's just making sure that people have the basic safety training to know the things that are really important to them in their job. We also strengthened our partnership with LPD. We launched a training session to help. We have specialty positions that get re-interviewed for each and every year. And so we launched a program to help train all those officers who are going to be interviewing for those specialty positions on how to show up for the interview, how to put your best foot forward, really all the best practices and interviewing techniques. So when you're sitting for the interview, you really feel good about, I gave this my best shot, I was prepared coming in, and I knew what an interview panel was listening for and expecting from me as an interviewee. The other phase of that, phase 2, which we're partnering with LPD on, is really then to prepare those interview panels and those people making the selections for those specialty positions to what does a good interview look like? How do you listen for the qualities or the talents we need for someone who will be really successful in that role? How do you know what a good answer is? So that is going to be launching in September. So we'll continue our partnership with them and providing those learning opportunities. I know John told me how to do this. Hold on, I have notes written because I have a lot of good stuff. I don't want to miss any of it. So I think I got it. I just scrolled. I got it. Thank you. Yep. We also launched a Leadership Academy this year. That Leadership Academy has delivered 5 modules, and we've got some, which I'll talk about coming up. What we've really focused on in our Leadership Academy is leading at the speed of trust. We understand trust and solid relationships are really important. We have about 100 leaders at the city that are participating in this. We also launched critical practices for leading a team. The project management for the unofficial project manager, we all get pulled into those projects. So how do we strengthen our project management and our delivery? For those folks, the 7 habits of highly effective people, and then unleashing your team's potential. So those are the ones we have delivered. The ones we have targeted is to support a strategic goal of the city. It's customer service training. We're targeting delivering that this fall, so we can really look at how do we ensure our teams have the customer service skills to meet the expectations of the constituents we serve. We're developing a new manager training program also, which we'll be targeting to launch either late this fall, early winter, and that's really, we promote a lot of people into leadership positions. How do we make sure they have the basic skills to be successful when they step into a role of leading a team now? From peer to team leader requires just a different set of competencies. And then the last piece we're really focusing on in our learning and OD team is really how do we lay the groundwork for tying our values back to behaviors or organizational competencies, so we know how to measure those kinds of things in our organization. So are we really leading from our values, and how do we identify those values into behaviors? So that's a piece we're working on launching also. The other part of this team is our equity and inclusive city efforts. And the things we have done to support that. This is our, you'll see it, it's our ethnicity by generations. We've kind of broken down what do we look like from a city perspective, and how are we looking at strengthening this. We launched GARE training in 2023, and we've relaunched it for 2024. That is a 10-month training. It's half-day sessions, and it really focuses on how do we apply the D&I principles into the city and our day-to-day work, so we can create communities where people really feel like they have a true sense of belonging, and they can recognize their full human potential in our workforce. We are also working on partnering with some of our other departments to do a language access plan so we can grow the equitable and inclusive community and support the welcoming community certification requirements. And that is all done through our Learning and OD team and RJ Vega, who we hired. He started this year and he's leading those efforts. We have done a lot on our total rewards.
I'm going to come back to this question, that slide.
Okay, you can come back to that slide. So, and I have questions. I'm going fast, but I have time for questions at the end. In our Strong and Resilient Cities and our compensation, our total rewards team, we have done a couple things to really focus on how do we ensure we're offering a comprehensive value proposition to our employees. So competitive salaries and outstanding employee benefits to ensure our employees enjoy that quality, vibrant life that we're talking about at the city. And one of the things we really do is we focus on ensuring fair and competitive pay. We do a lot of market analysis and market research, come in front of you. We're up in classifications all the time. We're making sure that we have appropriate pay for them. But the area we haven't talked a lot about is strengthening our benefits. And so this year we did switch our broker to Hub, and Hub is helping us go out. I talked about our health insurance being about 56% of our overall budget in HR. It's a huge chunk. So how do we go out to the marketplace and ensure we're getting the value for the dollars we're spending, and we're being financially responsible with that taxpayer funds that have been entrusted to us for that. So we are right now marketing our health insurance, our pharmacy, our dental insurance, our life insurance, looking at the various vendors in the marketplace to see. Aetna's been our partner for a long time. Is there a better partner out there? I don't have those answers yet, but we need to take a look at the marketplace. So we engaged Hub. They're doing that work for us. We also took a look at the fiscal security of our people. It's not just about taking care of their well-being through these benefits we offer, but it's about their financial security into retirement. So we engaged a new advisor, Fiducian. The advisor looks at all of the funds that we have in our retirement plans and make sure that our fund lineup is strong. We have well-performing funds. So the dollars that the employees invest in the 401A or in their 457 get a good return on investment. And they look at all those regularly. We have quarterly meetings now looking at those fund lineups, and Fiducian has been fantastic for us. The other thing we did was transition. We had 3 retirement plan vendors. We transitioned all of those retirement plans into one vendor, Nationwide, which was already a known commodity to us. We were already using Nationwide. They were one of our 457 vendors. By doing that, by putting that all together, we could reduce the fees that we were paying for record keeper services. And I think the big win is Nationwide has a huge set of tools for our employees to help them do retirement planning, help them make sure that they are appropriately saving. The other thing we have is Nationwide has a staff person that does a ton of in-person meetings. So employees enjoy the ability to come in, meet with a person face-to-face, talk through their personal financial picture, and ensure they are appropriately saving for that next phase of kind of their career lifetime with us, right? From when we hire to when they retire. And how do we make sure our benefits span all of that? So we did both of those things this year. I'm sure my team is thinking of all the things I've forgotten to tell you about that we've accomplished. So this is our pension slide. So we continue to be very prudent in monitoring our pension funding. We want a healthy pension fund. We are 79.95% funded in our pension, which is good. That's good news for us. But we continue to monitor that. We do an experience study every 4 years. The city funding is what you see here. We do know our city funding is projected to go up. Factors that contribute to that are obviously the increases we give to our public safety employees. But then another big contributor is our market returns on the money that we've got invested in the market. And we are lowering those assumptions to bring us more in line with the trends that we see on the returns on the money. So over a period of time, you're going to see that go from 7.5 or 7.25 down to 7. And so that also contributes to those increases you're seeing in our projected pension funding. We stepped into, and I only really have 2 years of data to talk about here, but we set up the employee engagement team, which was kind of a new concept. That was part of the team that we were able to pull together. And that team really focuses on working with our leaders and our unions and really trying to enhance workplace synergy, productivity, and foster strong trust-based relationships. And we have been starting to track our metrics to say, is our team making a difference? And what are the metrics we should be tracking to see it if we're making a difference? So what I have is just first quarter data because we don't have a lot of data. And what we look at is how many times do we consult? A leader might come to us and say, I have employee X, Y, or Z, and they're struggling in this area, that area. How do I help coach and work with them and develop skills and the things that they need to do to really be successful in the job? So we have started to see these metrics moving. Our consulting's going up. That's what we want to see. That means we're successfully building our talent we have, helping identify gaps and close those gaps early on. The next one is really our formal corrective actions. Those numbers are starting to trend down, which means we've dealt with things in a positive, kind of proactive way. And so we're seeing less of those formal corrective actions, which are important to us. The other thing we're starting to measure is disputes. That's just kind of what a normal thing that happens in workplaces. We're going to have people who see things differently. So how many of dispute resolutions are we doing in an informal way where we're having traction and getting involved sooner to deal with those kinds of things versus having them lead over into more of the informal investigation? So we think we'll continue to track this, but our numbers look like they're going in the right direction, and we're having the positive impact we wanted to really see with those teams. Oh, shoot. I'm skipping slides now. Okay. Well, anyway, we'll go on to the next slide. I had a few more things I was going to highlight there. But the other thing that this is we call it it's our employee operations, our operations team, our HRIS team. They're the ones that really do all the daily work, keep the lights on. All the high volume of activity comes through them, every employee action. And today, the way our system is set up is every action is done as an individual factor on our employees. We are stepping into and started a workforce restructuring design project to help us get to concatenating that data together by the use of positions. And this hopefully will take those numbers of individual actions down, because by selecting this position, a lot of attributes will already be loaded to that employee. So we've started this project. We're on track. Our target is to try to finish the project by September. But this is the way we continue to look at. We've got a lot of tools available to us. We have a lot of systems capabilities. How do we make the best use of it? How do we do design system thinking to make sure we're using the automations available to us in this team? And I'm hoping we're going to see those number of actions go down, because we'll have fewer actions or fewer individual attributes to process for each action. So I'm hoping next year you're going to see this graph start to shift as we take advantage of some of the power of the technology we have available to us. We've also started to use that technology when we have to do mass uploads of actions, like implementing contract, a 3% increase across the board. We are using that technology to do those through data loaders and things like this instead of individually employees going in and entering all those changes, and have had great success in streamlining those processes, which represent a significant amount of work. So this team is really doing a lot to prioritize how do we simplify some of the work we're doing by using technology. But it still is a very busy team, as you can see by just the sheer number of actions we process. Safety and health. This has been a fun area to be involved in. We've done a lot in this area to try to think about how we restructure and put things together that make a lot of sense. So this is our leave management team and our risk management team. And what we really did in 2023 was pull ADA, FMLA, and workers' comp all together in one team because they used to be separated before. And then we also started tracking our data and ensuring we're appropriately administering programs like FMLA and ADA, which I believe we were. But what you're going to really see and why the numbers are changing is because I think we're doing a better job. We rolled out some employee communication to build awareness about what is FMLA, what is ADA, what is the benefit to me, how do I engage in these benefits. So our numbers are going up, but I think it's positive because we are giving them the information to understand those benefits. So at those times in their lives where they're having one of these events, we can try to help enhance the quality of the life that they have through taking advantage of these benefits. So we integrated it together, rolled out training, started tracking. The other thing we rolled out in 2023 was our paid parental leave. And so far in 2023, we had 24 employees take advantage of that. We are projecting out 54 in 2024. So we'll see how close we come to that mark. But that's been a good benefit that our employees are taking advantage of and definitely have enjoyed. Also on this team, we have our safety coordinator for the city. We have revitalized our city safety meetings. Those had kind of, when that position had been vacant for a period of time, had stopped occurring on a regular basis. So we've got those revitalized. We're having our safety meetings again and are really impacting the information out there. And we've rolled out a bunch of safety trainings. They are the funniest trainings. If you've not watched them, I should send you a link to one because they're amusing, right? You watch them and you get the message, but it does it in a really fun way. It's made safety fun. My last slide, and then I'll have time for questions, but I noticed today that I have a big typo on this slide. There is not $50 million in our budget here. So if you look at, we're doing a couple things in our administration of our work comp. We brought on Corvell to do our billing for us last year, and bringing just Corvell on saved us about $1.1 million in our billing, our bill rates, because they negotiate contracts and lower bill rates with the various providers. We're moving to a full TPA service this year, which will also result in some savings for us, but not $50 million. That is a typo. What it will result in is about $829,000 of savings in our claims management by doing more proactive, better claims management. So that long green bar on the right-hand side should say about $2 million of savings, not $50 million of savings. I wish I had $50 million of savings to give you, but I don't. And that's really the $1.2 million of doing a better job through our bill rate reductions, and then that $800,000, which is that third bullet, where we map out the expected savings through the claims management. So we are launching that. That project kicks off to implement our TPA in the next few months, and we'll probably, I know we'll have that done by the end of the year. So lots of work going on in HR. That's all I have for you, and I can now take questions.
Okay, let's take a couple of questions, and we're going to try my best to get us back onto schedule. Does anyone have any questions for Director McIntyre? Councilman Weber.
Thank you, and Director, thank you. I always think that we're really lucky to have you leading our HR department. I want to talk a little bit about paid parental leave. What class of employees is paid parental leave available to? Is that a citywide program? Is it only for full-time employees?
It's our full-time and part-time, what I would, this is a terrible word, but like regular employees. What it does not include is anyone who's considered a temporary. Temporaries are our seasonal, all our people we hire every year for the pools. So it's our seasonal, it's our on-call. We have a number of on-call staff that fill in as needed. It's our interns. So anyone in that temporary bucket does not get paid parental leave.
But
All other city
all
employees
other
do.
Employees do. Okay, great. And then I want to talk a little bit about one of the performance measures, right? Time in filling a vacancy. How can the city support your department in getting, and basically cutting 25 days down when it comes to filling vacancies? I just ask this because of the current job market that the United States is in.
It's very, very tough.
Yeah.
I think really when it comes to how do we best reduce the time it takes to fill the vacancies, it's what we've been working on, which is improving our candidate pool coming through. We had a 20% gain in the number, just the sheer number of candidates we're getting through the door. And that's really what it takes, right? We've got to have good talent walking through the door because a lot of times if it's a really challenging job, we are posting it a number of times to find that talented person that we really need in the seat. So we've done a bunch of stuff to, and I haven't even talked about that. There's a lot we've done to try to cut the length of time it takes. The things that we can control internally, we are. So managers no longer have to wait for that job to close to get the candidates. We will send them to them as candidates come in. We actually encourage them, reach out right away. If you see someone great, reach out and tell them, I'm going to be taking applications through this. I'll be scheduling my top candidates at this point or doing phone screenings. So we'll send candidates right away. We encourage managers to reach out, keep them warm. We have done a lot to shorten the timeline around hiring because we used to wait for it to close. Then HR would screen them. Then we'd only send either the top 5 or 10, which we know just doesn't work in this climate, in this environment. So we'll send everyone who's minimally qualified if you'd like us to do that. And then you're seeing the whole bucket of candidates that applied, which can help, how do I want to say this, set the stage for my expectations around hiring, right? So I see what's out there. A lot of times what we're looking for in today's workforce, sorry, it's really long. You asked me a question, I will fully answer this.
Yeah, I know we're running behind, but I really do appreciate this
but
information.
A lot of times what we're looking for is we want that, we call them purple squirrels, that perfect person, right?
Yeah.
But then what we start looking at is, okay, but what about talent I can develop? What do I have in this pool that's talent that might not check all the boxes, but they check a lot of boxes, and with some investment, development is really what we're talking about too, is how do we get the right talent and invest in them? And that's part of why we've launched our Learning NOD team, because we know it's going to require a lot more growing the talent that walks through the door, because it is harder to find that perfect talent.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. That acquiring is only half the battle, and then developing. Thank you, Director. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Councilman Duden has a question, and then we'll move on.
How much staff do you have?
I have 30 employees in my department. One of them is 100% paid for by county, and so they spend 100% of their time on county. They're in my budget, and you're going to see them, but county reimburses us 100%. So I have 29 staff. Of those 29 staff, about 24 of them are 70% dedicated to the city, and then county pays for 30% of their time. So I'm one of those shared departments. So county and city, I support both organizations. And I've got some departments that are 100% city, like our risk department, our pension department. But pretty much all of my staff is that 70-30 split.
How'd you come up with that split?
It's in an interlocal agreement that was signed in the 70s, which I have.
From the Arthur D. Little study.
I just know when the agreement was signed. I don't know how they got to it in the 70s.
Very good, very good. Has that changed a lot over the last couple of years, the number of employees that you've had?
So in the prior budget, when I came in the door, we had 4 positions added for us. And that is really that employee engagement team. Well, one of them is the 100% county position. So 3 that have been funded by the city. So we did have some add to staffs.
Okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. And we're just about 9 minutes behind, but I think we can keep this up. We're going to make it. Thank you so
Right.
much,
Thank you for
Director
your time.
McIntyre.
That's a good one.
I saw that come
That'd
in.
be great.
Thank
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chief. How are you doing today?
Great. You can see our mission statement here. I won't read that. Core values. Our org chart has stayed pretty much the same. We just made the changes to the individuals that are in the positions. Funding sources were primarily general funded. We have the grants and aid, which will cover our SAFER grant that we've got for the 18 firefighters. That's also covers USAR, which the federal government gives us for the urban search and rescue team, gives us a reimbursement. And then our EMS enterprise fund. And I like to remind everyone that everything ambulance transport is covered by the EMS enterprise fund. To my knowledge, and we've done the research on it, we're the only ones in the United States that operate like that, where our emergency transport is enterprise funded. There's a lot of good with it, but there's also some negatives. It just depends on how you look at it. But we've done a really good job of managing that, and it's very uncommon. Total expenditures, as you can see, personnel services, our personnel, we're primarily personnel driven, and they cover the majority of it. Materials and supplies are going to be equipment and things you can put your hands on. Other services and charges, it's a big number, but those are things that are those are monies that we owe other departments or things. So you look at IS, risk management, MSC. We rent a lot of space out at the Municipal Services Center, so that's where that is. We've got debt service, which a lot of that, and primarily all of it, is the Station 8 debt for 17th and Van Dorn, that we're building that station, and that's to pay for that. And then the transfer out is going to be the CIP for our apparatus. Investments, so you can see our personnel count out of the general fund, the grants and aid, and EMS enterprise. So you'll see a large number in the grants and aid. That's going to be the 18 firefighter and firefighter paramedics that we put in, that we acquired through the SAFER. And obviously for 3 years, those individuals and their benefits are paid for. EMS enterprise fund, again, is going to be our people that are solely EMS personnel. And then we do have a little bit of like portions of my salary, since I deal with EMS, and all the other administrative people get paid out of that fund. Training center improvements. So we're really excited about our training center. Is old. It's at 3rd and South. The training tower that we're required to have to meet a special like ISO insurance services is falling apart. If you go down there, we've got a fence around it because the rocks are falling, the concrete's falling. So we're going to invest in a new training tower, which meets the needs of our department for training. So we're really excited about that. And then station improvements to enhance the operations, improve response time, and the health and safety of our firefighters. We do a lot of outreach, and so we're looking at bringing on. We've got a community stakeholder group, external stakeholders as well as internal. So we're looking at kind of rejuvenating that and getting some new blood into that program this year. Recruitment workshops to try to bring people in. We're doing a lot of recruitment. We don't have anyone specifically in our department that is assigned to recruitment, so we utilize personnel on their days off and stuff who are willing to go to different job fairs and that sort of thing. And then department trainings. We're really doing a lot of training for HR related issues, but also for the firefighting and EMS related issues. And then something new that is going to start this fall is we are entering into the partnership with LPS on the Career Academy. So for the first time, we'll have a Career Academy track for fire. We've got one for EMT, so we're excited about that addition. Protecting our community, we maintain, as you're well aware, of high cardiac survival rates, and we're really proud of that work. And so we do this through various things. A lot of it is training and just our commitment to response, but we implement system improvements to provide better patient care and continue to improve those response times. So we've got a great medical director who allows us to do a lot of things in advanced life support that contribute to better survivability. And then one of the things that's really important is how fast we get out the door. So we're always monitoring our performance of our personnel and making sure when they get the call, they're out the door and on the streets, because that's one area that we can control in our response times. We can't always control the traffic and the weather and those factors. Now we go into some performance measures. Contain structure fires to the area of origin 80% of the time or better. We hit the 80 mark this year. We don't have a lot of control because it really depends on when the fire's reported, how fast we get there. But our control is ensuring that our people are trained and ready to go and they get out the door. So the sooner we get to a fire, the quicker we put it out, the less time outside of the home or business for the people. So that's a really important factor that we have. Save at least 95% of the value of property and contents threatened by fire. We do really well year after year, and again, that's just the investment in our department and the ability to get to emergencies quick and get the fire put out. So we're saving a lot of the property and contents there. This one is pretty amazing. When we set the goal of having bystander CPR in our community at 60%, I thought we were doing really well at 70%, but this year we hit 75%. And that's a lot to do with our Pulse Point app, our public awareness campaigns that we do for hands-only CPR, but a big shout out to our dispatchers who give the pre-arrival instructions and recognize when people need CPR and walk people through that process. So all those factors together are, the numbers are just amazing. I don't know who else has numbers like that in the United States. And then achieve a CPR fraction of at least 90%, not less than 80. We're at 95. That's just through training and refining of our protocols. That means that we're constantly doing compressions on people that are in cardiac arrest, and we're disrupting it just minimal amounts of time. So this is about as good as you can get, I think, and we're very proud of the efforts of our personnel for that. Again, this is this last year in 2023, we were at 50% cardiac arrest saves. The national average is 33%. So we're definitely beating the national average and doing great work there. Unit arrival time, we get our a unit on scene able to intervene in whatever emergency 95% of the time within 7 minutes. So that is exceptional. Our ambulance response times to what we call Delta and Echo responses, those are the highest priority medicals. So an Echo response is a cardiac arrest, Delta is like a chest pain, those things. We're hitting 84%. We want to be at 90%. The factor that makes this difficult to get a true number is there are a lot of cases where our unit is downgraded en route, and that might be because it is deemed to be maybe an unsafe scene or something. We haven't found with our reporting system a really good way to capture that. So in actuality, our performance is better than 84%, and we're working on ways to determine what actual performance is. But you know, 84% is still a good number, and we're very happy with the way we're responding right now. I also expect that to go up a little bit next year because we added an 8th medic unit in the last budget, and that went in service August 16th, so we haven't been able to get a full year's data on it yet. Now is question time. I rolled through that pretty good. I'm trying to help you out.
Thank you. Yeah, as Councilman Shob said, you're on fire. Yeah. All right, any questions? Councilman Duden.
Yes, sir.
Dave, have you accounted for, in the budget, improvements to fire stations as it pertains to the exercise areas and also the sleeping areas? Because they seem to be, those seems to be the biggest deficient problems in some of the older stations.
Yes, so we do have money that's earmarked in the CIP to try to make those improvements. The challenge that we have right now is, as you can see, a lot of personnel. We don't have a lot of wiggle room when it comes to the improvements that need to be made because they're very, very costly. So as you know, we did a environmental survey of all the stations. We know what the costs are. We're working towards making those improvements. We are doing some improvements to Station 7 right now to provide we've got a lot of our female firefighters that are assigned there, and they've got a very little locker room space. So we're making those improvements as we can, and so there is money set aside. It's going to be a marathon and not a sprint at this point, just because of the sheer costs involved.
Councilman Bowers.
Kind of follow up on Duden's question. I don't know if we've received it or not. You might have sent it out. Can you send out the environmental study that's been done to kind of give us a sense of like what all has been reported that needs to be updated or what all is on that list?
Yes, it's the Pacheco-Ross study. It went out a while back. I'd be happy to send a copy back out to you.
Okay.
Yep.
I'd like that too.
Yeah, I just sent it to you.
I think you did send it to me.
Yeah, but we can share it with again because it's been a while, so it might have gotten kind of set aside.
Have you ever looked at other sources of income for some of those improvements?
I guess I can't say we've looked at sources of income. I don't know what we would have available to us. We've looked, and there was a time period where there was some grant funding available.
Right.
There's no longer any grants for that, so we've looked at things like that. But yeah, that's been the challenge. Yes. So in the CIP, there is, I believe it's $45 million set aside for a GEO bond to take care of that, which would help us significantly with that, with a lot of the renovations. I think the ultimate cost, if we base it on the Pacheco-Ross study, was a total of around $100 million, which is that's significant. But we're looking at a lot of really old infrastructure that just wasn't built. I mean, at the time it was probably great, but there's been a lot of changes in that time. So, you know, and a lot of the fire stations that we have throughout the city are really, really small, and so expansion makes it tough. If you look at Fire Station 8, for instance, that looks like a really big building when you pull up to it, but part of it is it's a two-story, which most of ours are not two-story, but it just meets the modern day facilities that we need, and an exercise facility and all that are outside of like the apparatus bay where there's carcinogens, and that's where in some of our fire stations some of our people are working out.
Right.
Yeah. First, it's great progress on Station 8. I love driving by it every day and seeing it come up out of the ground, and it's very exciting. Can you just, this is probably a tag back to the last budget, tell us where we are with the tankers?
Yes.
Yeah. Were
Tankers?
they actually purchased out of the last budget, or are they in this chunk of equipment that's being
Yeah,
planned
so
for?
they were purchased, and we're having them built right now. I don't have an absolute time frame, but one of the questions from the outset was whether we could get chassis or not. We got the chassis, so
Okay.
we will get them as soon as they get them built. But we had a design team put together an assessment of needs to meet the annexations and the areas that are water deficient. And so we're really happy with the product we're getting, and we look forward to them actually arriving in the city.
All right.
Yes.
Can't wait. All right. Any other questions for Chief Engler?
I guess I just have one and a half.
You can ask too.
When it comes to the upgrades that need to be done, and this is probably in the study, if it's in the study, you can just tell me that it's in there. How do they determine like which ones to do first, right? I mean, if you have two things that need improvement, how do you determine which one gets the priority?
So the Pacheco Ross study pointed out the deficiencies and the problems in the stations, and then we contracted with Project Control to kind of price them out and let us know what needs to be done. So we have done our own prioritization, and a lot of them, the priority things are basically health and safety, and then equity issues. So if, for instance, if a fire station has a bunk room where it's just one big area with a lot of beds, that's not a modern day fire station facility. So that's going to be a priority. If our new stations have individual bath and shower rooms as opposed to one big locker room. So those are the priorities. And then obviously anything we can do to promote health and safety. So cancer prevention, not having your workout area in what we call a hot zone. So the hot zone's the apparatus floor where the fire products off gas afterwards. You think of the self-contained breathing apparatus, the hose, all those things. Even though we clean it, when you walk into a fire station the morning after a fire, they had a fire because you can smell it. So those materials are off-gassing. So what we want to do is we want to keep that outside of the living area. So those are the real priorities. And then obviously code things, the codes have changed, and so getting those things upgraded. So those are the real priorities of what we're looking at to change.
Yeah, no, for sure. The health and safety stuff always kind of, is concerning because not that I call fire and rescue every day, but I probably call them more often than the average citizen because of a family member's health issue. And, I always feel super guilty when they come, and then when they leave, it's like, you guys just did all this stuff for my family, and, am I doing everything I can for your family, the fire family? The last question that I have is how would you say that we are on track with having what our city size should have for firefighters and paramedics? Like how much over, under?
That is a tough question because every city is unique. I would say that obviously we've bought land for Fire Station 17 down south. That's an area that we could use better coverage. I think we're doing, and that's gonna require an investment in staffing, but we're really making some positive progress with the 18 firefighters that we just put on in the SAFER grant and everything. So we're working our numbers up. Like I said, that's a tough one. I would say a lot of fire departments our size probably have more personnel than we have, but it's tough to pinpoint exactly where we need to be. The SAFER grant is getting us closer to meeting every day the national standards. And then when we take a look at the areas that we're growing in the city, the real need is going to be down south, which we've got that land bought, and it's just a matter of going through that process, getting the funding, getting the personnel, and so we're continuing to grow with the community.
Perfect. I have a couple more questions, but we'll talk about it later because I don't want to stay on schedule. But the last one thing I want to follow up with you later about also is funding for mental health of our firefighters and paramedics. And, is there a pot of dollars there for crisis debriefing or whatever, right? To get more of an understanding of that and what could be enhanced in that. So that's a
Love to talk about that. Yeah,
okay, cool.
you bet. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Really good questions, James. Chief Engler, I just had one last question.
Oh, yes,
The
sorry.
Pachenko-Ross study, does that also include the project control prioritization or?
No, what Project Control did for us was costed it out.
Okay,
And then we kind of looked at what the priority list would be.
okay. All right, thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and I was looking forward to saying I'll be the hero and get you all back on schedule, but leave it to the fire chief to be the true hero
I know,
and
he can't-
and handle
No,
it.
Benny.
Handle that. So, well, it is my pleasure to be with you here today, and with me is Chief Information Officer Abby Ecker, and we'll go ahead and get to it. So I'll read our this information about the Finance Department because I think it's really important. The Finance Department works in partnership with elected officials, all city departments, other governmental agencies, and businesses and individuals in our community to provide financial oversight, information, and services to carefully manage public resources and make informed decisions to support city operations. So to me, the takeaway there is we very much see ourselves as a customer service oriented organization. So the Finance Department has 8 divisions, which are listed here. And I'll go over them a bit. As I said, Abby Eckers, Chief Information Officer, leads our Information Services Division. And so also we have accounting. That should probably note payroll, because payroll is probably what most individuals care most about what our accounting team does. And so that is accounting and payroll. That's led by Melinda Jones, City Controller Melinda Jones. The budget team should probably be on here flashing in lights or something because of just the incredible job that Sherry and her team, Claire and Liza, are here with us as well today, preparing all of this and supporting the mayor and the council. City Treasurer Tammy Wissing is the leader of our City Treasurer's Office team, and the Treasurer's Office does revenue collection, accounts receivable. They do issue some permits, and we'll talk a little bit more about the alarm program as well as the short-term rental program. They do management of our cash management and investment management. City Clerk's Office, you're very well aware of Sony Fan and her team and the excellent work they do supporting the council, doing document management for the city, record keeping, and as well as working with many customers within the city for issuing various permits. Mm-hmm. Purchasing is led by purchasing agent Pete Kroll, and Pete has been doing an excellent job with his team, innovating and working as a customer service-oriented division for the Finance Department, serving the needs of departments. And I should note, purchasing and information services are 2 divisions within the Finance Department that serve both the city and the county. City Fleet Coordination is one of our new divisions, if you will, and City Fleet Manager Pat Wenzel, a longtime city employee and fleet superintendent of the Light Fleet Garage, otherwise known as the Police Garage, has been in capacity of City Fleet Manager for a little over a year. And then finally, our newest division, which we don't have an individual in that position as of yet, but the City Facilities Manager is also part of the Finance Department. This slide shows Finance Department's various funding sources. The Information Services Internal Service Fund is our largest fund at approximately 56% of the total. The Social Security Fund is being phased out. It no longer has its own property tax levy rate, but is being maintained only in the event of any prior year delinquent property taxes being received. Any funds paid into the Social Security Fund would be used for city employee fringe benefits, but we do expect it would be very minimal. We are monitoring, you also see the Keno Fund, we are monitoring Keno revenues closely and maintaining some conservatism on the use of casino revenue. In the event we do see higher negative impacts of the casino on Keno revenue. And then I'll touch on casino revenue is our newest funding source. As you all know, while shown as revenues in the finance department's budget, these revenues are proposed to be transferred in the mayor's budget as follows: $710,000 each year to urban development to continue the investment of casino revenues for affordable housing, $100,000 each year to the JBC, or Joint Budget Committee, for early childhood education, and $350,000 each year to Parks and Recreation for playground equipment and parks maintenance at various park sites in the first year, and for the South Haymarket Park in year 2. This slide shows budgeted expenditures from all funding sources and all divisions. As mentioned on the previous slide, most of the budgeted expenditures represent the important work of our IS division, providing technological resources to allow all of us to do our jobs, as well as develop, maintain, and protect city hardware and software systems. And maybe now I'll just cover this, but Abby might offer a little bit more context on a following slide. But so we invest in economic development and innovative and operationally excellent cities. So first, in the mayor's proposal, we will enhance the city's information technology, information security defenses with the addition of a cybersecurity operations specialist position responsible for monitoring, detecting, and responding to security incidents. Probably not a week goes by, I imagine, if you're like me, where you hear of things in various companies and also governments within the country through that. So as we think it's very important that we make investments in protecting the city's systems and hardware and software systems. The mayor's proposal also has increased funding for 0.5 FTE dedicated to efficient administration of the short-term rental and alarm system programs. So we have had someone for that, but as you heard earlier from Chad and the expansion of short-term rental usage in the city, our team in the city treasurer's office does collect the short-term rental revenue that is paid as if it was an occupation tax. And that revenue does go to the West Haymarket JPA, just as the hotel occupation tax does that the city administers on behalf of the JPA. So that half FTE will enhance that short-term rental program administration, and as well as our alarm system program. And those actually will be paid through increased program revenues, most notably through the JPA. The West Haymarket JPA will reimburse the city, since the revenues through the efforts of that individual will go to the JPA.
Would you say that one more time?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yep. So the short-term rental program revenues are dedicated to the West Haymarket JPA, just like the hotel occupation tax is. Because the JPA benefits from the work of this individual, the revenues, that the JPA, just as we do a number of other things, the JPA will reimburse the city for the cost of that half FTE. My apologies for being unclear. And then finally, the mayor's proposal does have a 1.0 FTE assistant purchasing agent position, which will be dedicated to prioritizing contracts needed for the city's Water 2.0 initiative. And that actually will be reimbursed to the purchasing division and paid using state-awarded federal ARPA dollars from LTU. And now I'll ask Abby if she'd like to visit a little bit about Information Services Division.
Of course. Good afternoon. I'm Abby Ecker. I'm your Chief Information Officer. As we could tell, Director Heaton wears a lot of hats. In IT, we wear a lot of hats as well, one of which being security, which, again, you really, it's very difficult to look at the headlines these days and not see the challenges that cities are up against. And so IS has certainly taken notice, and there are a lot of things that are happening these days behind the scenes that are making us stronger as a city. So talking a little bit more about that additional FTE, just really quick, when you think about the work that IS does as a whole, we have a lot of smaller teams that work together. Anytime we have a city asset like, an asset in the water or the wastewater program or our law enforcement or public safety, my security team behind the scenes is constantly looking at what are other cities doing to keep those assets safe. We're putting a lot of effort into really also working with our partners to make sure that whether it's guidance from the federal government, from other, our state government, or even other cities, that we're working to put those things in place. So really this individual is identified as being part of a team that's going to be doing very intentional, direct security responsibilities that frankly are appropriate for a city of our size. So what does IS do? It's an excellent question. We manage the technology ecosystem for all of the city and county. What that means to us is that's our assets in the data center, which we've worked to expand over the last 4 years since the pandemic to help all of our customers be able to work remotely, to manage our new assets that come online. That's our network, which spans across all of our city and county buildings, including which are about 7,000 devices that we get to track down and make sure we know where they're at all times. We also, probably a lesser known thing about IS is we manage about 2,000 miles within the city and county of broadband infrastructure, so conduit that ISPs locally lease to be able to provide internet to every single household and business that chooses to have it. I can tell you, working with other cities, that's an asset that's extremely unique to us here in Lincoln, and it's one we're extremely proud of. When we talk about really where IS fits in the big scheme of things, my team very often is faced with the question of how do we innovate while also making sure that we're secure? Candidly, our approach to it has been to embody both. An example of something that we've done recently that we are very proud of and that's been extremely helpful to our city operations is using that conduit system to make sure that we have resilient points to every single city and county building that requires that connection. That helps us out in emergency situations, that helps out public safety when we need dedicated channels. But we're engineering things to make sure that we've got our toughest use cases in mind. Also really important to us, making sure that folks have a safe work environment whenever it comes to their devices. There are a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that, we're making sure that, some of the traffic that we're learning about from other cities are frankly things that would encounter our ecosystem and not be able to be as damaging as they have been in other communities. This investment to our security program is one that it's probably the highest impact for a single FTE we could identify. So thank you again, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, maybe I'll just go ahead and continue, and we'll have an opportunity for questions. So this slide shows Finance Department's staff by funding source and division. And for the current fiscal year 23-24, we have the city fleet manager position labeled within finance administration. We are now going forward, will include the city fleet manager within a distinct division, and you see that here where we show city fleet coordination with a 1 FTE beginning in 24-25 and continuing in 25-26. In purchasing, you will see the assistant purchasing agent position dedicated for Water 2.0. As I said, LTU reimburses the finance department for that position using ARPA funding. And then finally, you'll see under information services, the cybersecurity operations specialist position being added beginning in 24-25. In finance department, we take our responsibilities to the city and its citizens very seriously, and as a result, we measure ourselves by indicators of excellence. For example, maintaining a AAA GO bond rating, the highest possible to get the city the very best financing terms, as well as continued recognition of awards of excellence from the Government Finance Officers Association for financial reporting and budget presentation. And as well as adding to that performance measure number 6, in which the IS team work incredibly hard to have the technological resources needed for us all to do our jobs, that labeled as uptime, a very high standard there as well. Now maybe Sherry can come up and talk to you a little bit about miscellaneous budgets, which is essentially a centrally managed, it's not a program, but so it's not specific to any single department. And Sherry will share more information about miscellaneous budgets.
Good afternoon, Sherry Wolf-Durbel, your budget officer. This first slide, as Lynn mentioned, we call them miscellaneous budgets, a collection of funds and programs that aren't specific to any one department. This slide shows that the majority of those programs are funded by the general fund, about $84 million or 82%. Another funding source for this group of programs is the turnback tax revenues from sales tax, the property tax revenues on our general obligation bonds, special assessments, or small TIFs. The revenues are collected here for those debt service payments. Our advanced land acquisition fund falls in this group as well, which is funded by sporadic revenues from land sales. I gotta look at my notes because these slides are very small. And then the Community Health Endowment and the public Pinnacle Bank Arena are also reported in this category, although their budgets are developed pretty much outside of this process by their own boards. I think we go to the next slide.
All right.
So the uses of these funds are reflected on the next slide. The biggest category of these revenues are from the general fund, and they go to transfers. These are general fund subsidies to our special revenue funds like StarTran, the Health Department, Aging, Animal Control, and the 911 Communication Center. These programs all generate a significant amount of their own revenues, but they still need a tax subsidy to function. The next biggest category is the personal services. This is primarily the general fund fringe benefits for all of our general fund departments, their health insurance, Social Security, all of their pension. Those benefits are all budgeted centrally here in what we call the general expense business unit. Some of the other major expenditures here, primarily the other services and charges category, is also largely, those expenses are largely budgeted in general expense. These include things like our support of Lincoln Partnership for Economic Development, our contribution to the Joint Budget Committee, the city's share of the county joint funded agencies like Public Defender, Emergency Services, Human Services. And we have our streetlight budget in here as well, so other services and charges. Part of that category is our energy payments to LES for the streetlight system. The council contingency budget is part of this other services and charges category as well. That's kind of what makes up the majority of those expenditures. PBA, of course, and the health endowment budgets fall into the other services and charges and personnel categories as well. I think if we want to move on to the last slide. I feel like I need to thank Chief Engler for his segue into this. He gave a great example, talking about the tanker trucks, of the lead times that we've been experiencing on the delivery of vehicles in particular ever since the pandemic. So because of this significant increase in the lead time to get the vehicles, it's vital that we get our orders placed as soon as possible. So we are proposing in this budget to issue municipal infrastructure bonds to finance the vehicles. This will give us the appropriations, the authority we need to place the orders in the first year of the biennium, so we can get in the queues for the production of these vehicles. We have done this in the past. We often use, issuing debt as a tool to finance our programs. Most recently, we had an order of snow fighting vehicles in the 21 issues that we did. We're also planning to include a new issue for streetlight funding. We do this every 2 or 3 years. Again, the last time we did it was in 2021. We're averaging about 1.9, almost $2 million of streetlight expenditures each year. So we're planning a $3.7 million issue of streetlight bonds along with this vehicle package. And so the total package we're anticipating will be approximately $8.3 million. We'll continue to work with our legal counsel and our bond
It's
advisors.
actually 8.3 for the
I'm
heavy
sorry.
equipment, plus an additional
Plus the
3.7 for
3.7,
streetlights. So a total of 12 million.
Yes.
Is actually the, yep.
So anyway, we will continue to work with our bond advisors on that over the next couple months to bring those packages forward as part of the budget.
All right, so just to close up here, finance. You saw the organizational chart earlier in the listing of our divisions, but so just to wrap up, accounting, payroll, financial reporting, accounts payable, payroll, our treasurers, or excuse me, accounting, also debt management and policy development. Sherry and her team, budget development and analysis, forecasting, grant writing. We have Sony's team, processes licenses, publicizes information, works with the council and processes documents. Abby and her team, information technology solution provider, providing customer service, network stability, and a help desk. Purchasing team under P. Kroll attains goods and services for city and county departments. They process purchases and audit contracts. And then the city treasurer's team under Tammy Wissing, cash management, investment management, and revenue collection for the city. And finally, Pat Wenzel, city fleet manager, coordinating fleet management among departments. And so we hold ourselves to high standards for accurate, efficient, and smart management of the community's financial resources. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director Heaton. That was a lot of information. I'm sure we have questions. Who wants to start? Councilman Bowers.
Hey, so I got two questions. So 2 years ago, the council voted to eliminate one of our own staff positions, a research position.
Yes.
And to transfer that over to the city clerk's office. Correct. I voted against it, but it passed, and to essentially provide the city clerk's office an additional person. Has that person been hired?
Not as of yet. In fact, Sony being incredibly diligent and thoughtful in preparing for the advertisement and explaining to individuals who apply the work that they do. She hadn't had an opportunity, but she is now, and we're moving forward with that immediately.
Because I guess that's kind of concerning to me, because the council doesn't usually make a ton of changes to past budgets. And 2 years ago, we essentially weakened the council by removing a research position to assist the city clerk's office in the amount of about $98,000. And to know that almost $200,000 had been transferred and no one's been hired for that, that's really, really concerning to me. The other question that I had was about the casino funding.
Yes.
So yesterday when Lorraine came in, she said that the casino revenue investments were projected to be at $1.32 million. $710,000 would go to affordable housing, $350,000 would go towards parks, $100,000 would go towards early childhood education and care, And any excess of that comes out to about 1.16
Correct.
million.
That's right.
Leaving about 94,000 that could go into existing to offset the decline. Because one of the concerns that folks have had is with the casino opening up, Keno revenue would go down, which means then there would be less funding into the Keno revenue. Well, when I look at the numbers that were in this budget, it comes out to on your side of it, it was 1.16 for the casino revenue dollars, which comes out to what has already been or what has been appropriated. So I guess I'm kind of concerned about that 94,000 difference between what the mayor said yesterday, which would go towards the excess to make up for any decline of Keno revenue, and that not being reflected here, because I still have concerns that the Keno revenue will decline, and I'm concerned that that won't be made up.
And we are watching that very closely, I assure you. In fact, but we did, and we were surprised by it. March was, for Keno, the highest revenue month on record. And that's, and the casino's been open for, more than over a year. So it was, so I think the vendor for the Keno is doing an excellent job of maintaining and marketing the Keno. And so far, while we've seen a little bit of an impact, I would say it's been much less than anyone really expected, frankly. And in terms of the mayor's mention of, so yes, our revenue estimate is higher than the amount that the 1.16 million that is being allocated through appropriations from casino revenue. And again, that is because we are monitoring and want to make sure we're being conservative on the casino revenue, just because we just don't know yet as Warhorse Casino completes its expansion, and we expect that, it's been ongoing, but we expect that to occur here in the not too distant future. We certainly do want to keep an eye on that. I would also offer that I think the Keno revenues have been conservatively forecasted historically, and so the amounts in actual receipts have been fairly strong, and we've adjusted that in the revenues as well, as to try to have the Keno revenues reflect actual experience, despite the fact that there's a concern about the impact of the casino.
Yeah, I mean, because I was of the same mindset that I didn't necessarily believe that Keno revenues would decline with the opening of a casino, and sometimes I kind of felt like I was the only person saying that. But again, I know this isn't a you decision, but I'm concerned about casino revenue not going into the same funding that Keno was put in there for to address prevention services. Last question I had to just kind of back up. So with the $200,000 that came out of this, essentially the city council coffers to a position that hasn't been hired, is that $200,000 then still in the finance coffers, or those dollars were appropriated from the city council to provide a position to the city clerk? What were those? Do you know what those $200,000 were spent on?
They would be among the unexpended appropriation in the clerk's office budget currently. Yes.
Okay, so that's still out there, and then that's something that could be used for other things. Thank you.
Yeah.
I did have I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, I did have a question about the budget that's online, the budget presentation online. If
Yes.
I'm looking under finance,
Mm-hmm.
and I am, maybe expenditures by fund is the title of the page,
Okay.
and it shows 2025 and 2026, and there's colorful blocks
Yes.
stacked. Would you please take a look at Keno and broadband in both 25 and 26 and tell me if I am reading it incorrectly?
They have broadband fund is fund number 570,
Yes.
and they swap places because the sorting is from largest percent to, and so I see, if I'm understanding your question, Councilwoman, they swapped places from 25 to 26 because broadband becomes, they're about the same, 10.3, but my guess is behind the scenes, the math there is it maybe 10.38
Okay.
for broadband and 10.35 for Keno. Am I understanding that's your question, the fact that they swapped places?
It's not that they swap places. I understand that
Oh,
one fund could be larger in one year than it is in another. It's the fact that the colors switched as well. So do colors signify the size?
No, I believe the software, which is ClearGov there,
Yeah.
it's just defaulting
Okay.
the order, the colors, based not on the fund number or the fund, but the order.
Okay, thank you.
I assume that's correct. Yes, I'm confirmed.
That's
It is confirmed.
confusing. And I noticed it here first. I'm gonna go back and check the other ones. It was just confusing to have, it looks as if there's some categorization I'm not understanding.
I don't know that the software allows us to just assign a color. It's likely a default. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this doesn't keep up with it.
Thank you.
Are we really blaming, not,
I'm gonna blame the software.
blaming the technology?
Well,
during the
thankfully,
IT?
Abby didn't deliver. Abby, just for the record, Abby did not deliver this software. This is purchased from a.
This is not created
I'm
in-house.
totally
This is
teasing.
a off
This
the
is
shelf.
this is vendor provided. Yes.
I'm
You're
totally
provided.
teasing you, Lynn.
All right, thank you. I am sure there will be more questions
course.
in the future, but thank you so much for this
Thank you.
presentation. And with that, I believe we are at a break. Is that true?
Thank you, Director.
We
Thank you.
are. We get
What's that?
15 minutes. Thank you so much. And in 15 minutes, we're coming right back to law.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
All right, legal, legal.
right?
All right, we can begin then. City Attorney, Mr. Christie.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council. It is my honor and privilege to stand in front of you and talk today about the law department. We, as well, maybe as you know, certainly as I see ourselves, we are in-house legal counsel for the city. We touch on all of the outcomes. We touch all the departments. We're involved in everything that happens in the city. I would submit the city cannot function without the law department. We support, again, all the departments, and at some point, you will have to eventually involve the lawyers. We like that to happen sooner rather than later. You can see our mission statement. I'm not going to read it out loud to you, but I would just highlight our primary programs, which are general legal services, civil litigation, legislation, prosecution, and administration of the Lincoln Commission on Human Rights. It is hard to capture everything on our mission statement. However, I think we have attempted to do so in our mission statement. The general legal services is the majority of what we do for the city. Here you can see our divisions in the law department. The civil division, again, legal services is the majority of our work that we provide for the city. Very hard to put into one slide what all the divisions handle and all the things they're involved in, but this is meant to be a high level, big picture. As an example, briefly, state legislation is listed under civil division, but certainly the other divisions are called upon to help with state legislation. However, it is formally ran through, administered through the civil division, just as an example. Here you can see our org chart. It breaks down the divisions a little more. We have restructured some things internally to be more efficient and effective and provide the best service. I'm happy to answer some of that later, talk about it later, or offline if you wish. City Law Department, generally this is what we provide. Again, as I stated at the outset, everything that happens in the city comes through the law department. I'm not going to read all of that out loud to you, but I would just suggest that all of the great things that happen in the city eventually will involve the law department as well. And I am very proud of that. And I think you have gathered that that is my theme for today. Here you can see our funding sources. We are funded primarily through the general fund. Our grants and aid fund is for the Commission on Human Rights. And I should have said at the outset, Ms. Jamie Reyes is here, the director of the Commission on Human Rights. But again, the grants, that is primarily for the Commission on Human Rights. And then when we go to total expenditures, as you know, and I'm sure is not a surprise, we are heavy personnel. I think that it is fair to say that that is true for any law department, any law firm. We actually are a law firm. We are just your law firm, the city's law firm. But every law firm, government or private practice, will be heavy in personnel. Here is a little bit about the prosecution division. Some of you have been on the council before, may have heard me touch on some of these categories before, but the first thing, immediate accessibility to members of the public. What that means is that people are able to come and speak to a prosecutor at any time. So someone who has a ticket, they are able to walk in and talk to prosecutors in our office. They don't have to have an appointment. They don't have to call ahead or anything like that. We have people staffed throughout the day during the business hours to speak with individuals about their tickets. I would point out that oftentimes these folks are unrepresented. That's just the nature of the charges. I would also point out that quite often this will be their first interaction with the criminal justice system, and it might actually be their first interaction really with the government, local government. And so I consider that to be a very unique opportunity for us to engage with the public. Second thing, provide prompt, fair, just prosecution in efficient and productive manner. I would point out that our prosecutors only prosecute. We don't have our prosecutors handling civil cases or handling the Commission on Human Rights or anything like that. Our prosecutors only prosecute. We believe that this helps with efficiency and productivity. Vertical prosecution is somewhat new in our office, but what that means is that cases are assigned. And so what we have started doing over the last few years is that we are assigning our serious cases, our complicated or unique cases to a specific prosecutor, and they follow the case all the way up, so to speak, and that's why it's called vertical prosecution. In the past, someone would be charged with a crime, and then it would just be handled by the prosecutor that was in that courtroom that day, and so it would get passed. That's referred to as horizontal prosecution. So what this is designed to do is to provide better communication. So when we talk about victims, witnesses, court staff, judges, they're dealing with one prosecutor, and that prosecutor is assigned to the case. The goal, of course, is to provide better service to the public. And here is a little bit on the Commission on Human Rights. We'll touch on that a little bit later as well, but just briefly, if we look at what I'm calling slide number 2, bullet number 2, we provide neutral mediation, investigation, fact-finding, conciliation, discrimination complaints. That is the main function of the Commission on Human Rights. This is a public-facing division, and so they are also dealing primarily with the public, and they are helping residents, members of our community. And again, I will talk a little bit more about the Commission on Human Rights a little later. Here, this is meant to highlight, I would say, one aspect of the civil division. When we talk about record-setting pace of private sector building and development in the city, I would just, again, like to point out that we must include the law department when we talk about those things. It's important to recognize that this type of development and investment infrastructure in our community doesn't happen without the lawyers, the law department getting involved. There's obviously necessary legal components that must be taken care of in order to make these things happen. We've listed some of those on this slide, such as redevelopment agreements, project negotiation. And here is, I mentioned at the outset, how we are in-house legal counsel for the city. This is a very hard thing to quantify. I would respectfully submit that you can't really put a value on it. But I want to highlight a couple things about the value that we provide. Again, I'm not going to read it all, but if we were to just highlight strong internal knowledge of city government, I don't think it would be disputed that our office has a superior understanding of city government. We know how things work. We know how to get things done. We know how to do it right. You know, a lot of times if you are going to talk to a lawyer who doesn't work for the city, they need to talk to a lawyer that works for the city to understand how things operate. When we talk about continuity of service, consistency, longevity, we have a lot of institutional knowledge. A lot of that is because we've had long-term staff, but I would also point out we have access to the institutional knowledge, and we have the resources available to go back into the records, so to speak. When we talk about strong relationships fostered with city staff, I would just point out that relationships matter. We all know that. We have the ability to anticipate based upon our relationships and experience, anticipate problems. We know where to go. We know who to go to. We know how to connect folks and who to connect folks with. These are things you can't teach, actually. And again, I think these are things that you will have a very hard time placing a value on. The last maybe couple things I do want to touch on, if we look at accessible and responsive, I think we all know this, but it's worth pointing out. We have attorneys every day that the city government is operating. We have attorneys available to answer questions. You can call, you can come in. Every day we're open for business. Attorneys are available to assist. And then myself, I'm just probably generally always available, whether we're open or not. Last thing, I think centralized focused legal services. I think we all know this, but I do always like to point this out. We have attorneys assigned to specific departments. And this helps with some of the things I already mentioned, institutional knowledge, relationship, those sort of things. But I would also just point out that it really helps us develop experts. It helps them really develop their craft and become sort of the go-to people in the city on issues, questions, and how to help the city move things forward. It also helps us manage the vast areas of law that we are tasked with answering and dealing with. Please consider our budget investments requests. Thank you ahead of time for considering it. First one on there is law clerk, additional part-time law clerk. I will tell you that law clerks are absolutely necessary. If you know anything about the legal community, there is not a serious law firm out there that does not have law clerks. Law clerks are law students that are hired on staff to do additional research, and they help take away some of the attorney's time so that they can focus on providing a better service. The second thing on there is education and training, CLEs, continuing legal education. We always refer to those as CLEs. Costs for these sort of things have gone up. Continuing legal education, all lawyers are required to have a certain amount of CLEs every year. They have to get a certain amount of hours in order to stay licensed to practice law. Also, we're talking about trainings, in-state, out-of-state, things that help us stay up to date on all the new developments in the law. Also help us connect with other city attorneys' offices across the country that can be very beneficial. I would also say that this helps us not only recruit but also retain top talent. It is a very competitive market out there. The last point on there is the part-time senior office assistant to support Lynn Commission on Rights. As I mentioned earlier, this is a public-facing division. People are constantly walking in. We need a full-time position out front to account for this. We do have a part-time person on staff, and what we've actually been doing is we've been shifting people around to accommodate. And so we are actually, funding this without it being in the budget, if that makes sense, right? Maybe Ms. Reyes as a director is coming to the front, or another investigator will maybe not investigate and handle things in the front, like those sorts of things to sort of accommodate the traffic that is coming in. So, again, thank you ahead of time for considering these requests that I would respectfully submit are small requests. Here is another slide that talks about the in-house counsel and just a way of trying to think about how we can quantify that. This is, I think we had, you shouldn't see that, 156. This is about an average in-house. It's a formula. It includes overhead and other costs. I'm happy to send you the formula. I can't explain it to you as I stand here in front of you today, but there is a formula. It's kind of a generally accepted formula of how government entities calculate, the value. Again, I'm happy to send it to you. The basic private sector and specialized private sector, I think those are general estimates. I would also submit that they're likely higher, but I think I think those numbers are fair comparisons in our community. I certainly know attorneys charging more than those numbers on there, and I think you probably do as well. So I'm being conservative. And then here, if I've already, when you talk about our performance measures, I've already talked about the first one. On the second one, I do just want to point out, this is the Commission on Human Rights. When we talk about maintain on time case turnaround 67% of the time, you would see that we haven't met that, but I would point you to our goal, which is fair resolution to discrimination complaints. And so we need to figure out a better way to measure that, and we continue to work on that. But as an example, a case might come in, the investigation of that complaint might pause to negotiate a fair resolution. And then so that time will count against the on-case turnaround, but at the same time could result in a fair resolution that meets our goal. And so we got to figure out a way to measure it. Yes, exactly. But we still have that on there, and we have Ms. Reyes. She's a new director, and we will continue to talk about that. But I do have to point that out. Lastly, our conviction integrity rate. It used to be conviction rate, and conviction rate is a popular way that prosecution offices across the country will measure their outcomes. Conviction rate is basically cases that are filed, how many of those cases led to convictions. What we are doing with conviction integrity rate is we are looking at, okay, out of the convictions, how many are overturned or, basically overturned, but for any other reason, has that conviction been questioned and has a court said that we did something wrong? What we were trying to do is focus on quality and not quantity. And so I think we are changing the focus there, and we've been using conviction integrity rate for a few years now, actually. We do still keep track of conviction rate as well. So Lincoln Commission on Human Rights, and I don't know how I'm doing on time. Do I need to speed? I don't know.
No, you're doing
okay, good. I'm good. Okay, great. All right. Well, then I'll go back. I just want to, I'm not going to read that, but I would just say that their mission statement is a daunting task. They were talking about eliminating all forms of illegal discrimination. This is not a small goal. Here you can see their org chart. And here you can see the Commission on Human Rights, their program areas. Again, this is high level. And the first two are the primary functions. Again, the first one, investigating discrimination allegations in the community, public facing again. And then the second bullet point there, education outreach regarding civil rights and responsibilities. One of the things when we talk about education outreach, example of one of the many things that Commission on Human Rights does in the community that I don't think people are aware of is that they provide training. One of the type of complaints that will come up a lot would be a landlord-tenant situation, and they provide training to tenants and assistants, but they also provide training to landlords on a regular basis about what is appropriate and things to consider, what's illegal and what is legal in their position as landlords. And so I think that is very valuable to the community. Is not something that everyone understands or knows is happening. There are other examples as well, of course. And here's a highlight of one aspect of Commission on Human Rights and what else they do, equitable and inclusive city. I've already talked about most of those. I just would briefly highlight the annual Civil Rights Conference. This past year, it was well attended. Had the U.S. poet laureate, Joy Harjo. She was the keynote. This was, again, as I stated, well attended, but we also had more first-time attendees than we've had in the past, and we had more city, county employees that attended this time than we have in the past. So we feel excited about that, very optimistic about that. We received lots of positive feedback. This is, again, another training opportunity. Our federal partners always come to those as well. The federal partners, I'm talking about HUD and the EEOC, they always attend. It's also an opportunity for continuing legal education for attorneys as well. And so, again, we are excited going forward with that. Ms. Reyes, who I've mentioned now, I think 3 times. I should probably just call her up here. But that was her first civil rights conference as a director, and I know she's excited about the future. And the next date will be May 2025. Again, just to expand a little bit more, when we talk about equitable and inclusive city, one of the things that the Lincoln Commission on Human Rights is doing right now, which you may have heard of, is My City Academy. And My City Academy really focuses on civic engagement. It helps our new American community members strengthen their ability to navigate, advocate, and impact local government. It helps them get a better understanding and hopefully really a in-depth understanding of their local government and our local services. And I would just say that, the more engaged our neighbors are in our local government, I mean, the better we all are, right? And so they're actively doing that on a regular basis. You can see they had 51 My City Academy graduates. They had their 6th cohort to begin in September, and I also think that we've even had at least one graduate go on a city board after they've gone through 2. I said at least one, so 2. Yep, so 2. Thank you, Councilwoman. So which also is a great thing as well, I think. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Oh yeah, we're good.
Thank you, Chair. Johans, what is the conviction rate for your office?
I would be happy to send it to you. The last time it's definitely above 90.
I would hope so.
What's that?
I would hope so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to just spitball a number. I'm thinking probably like 97 or so, but I'll send you the.
They keep track of it, I know, for police officers when they prepare cases and work.
I'm sorry?
They do the same for police officers.
Oh, mm-hmm.
And I think they should do the same for even prosecutors as well.
We absolutely keep track of it. We still do.
I do disagree with you. I think you can put a value on everything.
Okay.
You mentioned that a couple of times. And yes, I would agree, your senior veteran attorneys bring a lot of value to your office. And that's why they should be handling the more difficult and complicated cases, that sort of thing. I really like your attorney availability, and I think it's a good thing to be using interns for that law clerk position. I think that adds value to them as well, and it also gives you a chance to look at their performance to see if they might fit in your department as well. So I applaud you on that, and I pretty much agree with the need to have additional personnel as things grow, that sort of thing, especially in the area of the Civil Rights Department. I think that's an important factor, especially as Lincoln seems to be a magnet for a lot of different cultures. And the better that we can indoctrinate new people into the city, I think it's a great thing for all departments to have some sensitivity to those different groups. So thank you very much for the job that you do.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I would just add, the Commission on Human Rights, they have a lot of traffic coming in, and it is very easy when people are unsure where to say, how about the Commission on Human Rights? Which we're fine with that, but I'm just asking to have a public face person there all the time.
Councilman Shob.
Just one more person is all you're asking for?
We'll take
half.
more.
Okay, we should talk about that.
Yep, but yes,
The city's growing,
absolutely.
and the people that are, the residents of our community that are contacting us, asking for help, goes up every day. We have more and more people. As a former commissioner on the Commission on Human Rights, I think a lot of and again, the value-added part of, a lot of it is pre-settlement I did it wrong, predetermination settlements? I think that's the right phrase.
Pre-settlement, you're saying a lot of the activity is
Yes.
before we settle.
Just an
That's right.
education problem.
Yes.
I came in, I was angry about something. Oh, wait, I didn't quite understand what the rules were. And the Human Rights Commission explains most of that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a good investment in our community.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for what you guys do over there.
Yeah. Any other questions for City Attorney? One more question?
No.
Oh,
Just one person.
just one. Yeah. No, I think.
We'll
I
take
think
more.
we're-
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask for a clarification.
I'm
Be-
sorry. Bo reminded me that I did not turn my microphone on.
No one could hear you. But I was going to ask for one clarification because I could not tell if you asked for a half of a FTE or a full FTE.
So I asked for a half with the Commission on Human Rights, and then I asked for a half, which is that's how you probably saw.
For the law
That's how I
clerk.
get one. Yeah.
Okay.
That's how we get to one. Yes.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, no, I think law clerks are great because it's a recruitment tool besides a helping tool.
Yep.
Yeah, and it also helps us keep relationships with the university and
Yes.
the legal community as well, which goes a long way.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Thank you very much.
thank you.
And you've done your part to keep us on track. I really appreciate that. We have saved.
I got the sense that was
Very on brand.
that was
for,
important.
for the city attorney
Yeah.
to keep us on track.
keep us on track and out of legal trouble. So we are 60 seconds ahead of schedule.
glad to help. Thank you very much. All right.
All right. Director Weber.
You'll still bill us for that minute, though, won't you?
Yeah. Oh,
Yep.
is that a billable
Round up,
minute?
yep.
Oh.
It's at a good rate, though.
It's a good rate. All right. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Council. Glad to be here, and I will do my part, I'm sure, to keep everyone on track and on time, too. Great communities have great libraries. Every great city deserves a great library system, and we have one here in Lincoln, and I know you know that. We make the dollar stretch here, and we do that in ways that are seen every day in a very public way. By our programs, our services, and what we bring forth. Our current mission statement, which I should add, this is about to change. We went through a strategic planning process just recently, and that's just wrapping up. But we'll still hold to this. It still packs some power. Lincoln City Libraries fosters the power of reading and provides open access to all forms of information to enrich people's lives every day. So we are going to change that, and you'll see that next budget process for sure. Here's our organizational chart. I want to point out that we have a unique structure, and I have a couple reports. I report to the mayor, and then I also report to the Library Board of Trustees. We also, underneath me, have our library administration, our assistant library director, of which we're in the process of hiring soon for that vacant position. And then these two other areas are new, at least for the foreseeable future. They used to report under the assistant director, but buildings and grounds and virtual services will now report to the director position. And then support services, which is cataloging and processing, that team, along with public services, youth services staff, and then our Poly Library and Heritage Room, they all report to the assistant director. And in case you weren't aware, our unique two bottom blocks there in the chart, the Poly Music Services and the Heritage Room, they are both privately funded. Here's a look, top level, of our funding sources. The biggie, of course, is the county property or the city property tax at 83%. And then we have an interlocal agreement with the county, so we serve everyone throughout the county with the same exact services, plus the library's bookmobile makes visits to the county sites, is 8% of our budget. And then the other substantial portion, of course, is Keno funding. Charges, fees, and services are tiny and continue to become smaller since we removed our overdue fines that we counted on for so long. Keno pays for media, for our books, and for technology. So Keno is extremely important in what we do here at the library. Here's our expenditure summary. Of course, you can see personnel services, so our staffing captures the lion's share at 70%. I want to direct you to the darker blue, the capital outlay. That's not equipment, that's really books and media, things that get checked out. Again, it's an important part of our budget, and without replacement or new additions, folks wouldn't have trust in their library to make sure that they can come and find the latest materials. Other services, 13%, materials and supplies, 2%, and then debt service, 1%. I'm just going to go back. I want to point out also, as part of, I think with this budget, the biggest increase, the substantial increase is for personnel services, and that's just due to we depend a lot on the value of part-time employees. We have 93 part-time staff out of our currently I'm estimating 155, 160 staff. 93 part-time staff. And as you are most likely aware, as of January 1 this year, January 1 the next 2 years, the minimum wage continues to go up until it hits $15 an hour, which is a great thing. But I think that's will impact our budget this year and next year to the tune of 24-25. That alone increases our personnel budget by $29,941, and then in 25-26, $194,763. Our personnel costs continue to rise, but library staffing levels have held relatively the same for the past 15 years. And when it comes to media, that 14% that we spend for that, especially digital content, it makes it difficult to meet residents' demand. We have to be thinking now and in the future how we continue to plan for increases within our materials budget. I want to give you an example. We all know that cost and inflation continues to rise, but you probably weren't aware of this, that we pay about $20 for a popular print book. When we look to the ebook version of that, it's $60. Yeah, sometimes. I mean, it can get up to $60, and then oftentimes for that digital audio book, that downloadable, is somewhere in the range of $80 to $100. So the model that public libraries follow, not just here in Lincoln but across the country, is not sufficient. It's not fair. We all rely on the cost controls, really, of the 5 major publishers. And so when you go check out a book on Libby or Overdrive, every library across the country is paying that kind of a price for an ebook or for a digital audio, which makes it really hard because at the same time, we're trying to contend with our folks' expectations. You know, as more people go digital, they expect to quickly and easily, from the convenience of their home, check out a digital book. So when we look to our budget every year, we have to make sure that we're looking ahead to how we can balance that out. Paying for Print is still king. 70% of everything we check out is still the printed material. But that rising digital content continues to skyrocket in cost. Here's a look at our FTEs, current year and the next 2 years. It's holding steady at 108.04. In 22-23, we added halftime for service at public service at Isley Branch, and then we also have or on the books, approved by the council for 23-24, a halftime position for the upcoming new bookmobiles that will be delivered next year. Libraries are an investment in an equitable and inclusive city. Accessibility is huge, and I'm super proud to know that we have buildings, facilities, staff in our neighborhood locations that are open 6 to 7 days a week. Matter of fact, they're all open 7 days a week, except for our smaller Bethany branch, which is still in the neighborhood of the Anderson or Havelock area in the northeast side. But 7 days a week, and on average, or usually if you're open full hours, it's about 64 hours a week. So we provide great service Sunday through Saturday. We know that libraries today can't sit back and wait for people to come to them. We make opportunities easier for us to make impact, for the libraries to make impact in neighborhoods through outreach, through digital access. And I can proudly tell you that in our upcoming strategic plan, one of our priorities is to maximize access and to reach more people. And we do that strategically with understanding where folks aren't being served and how we can do a better job. Also, we know that it's important for us to make the most impact, for us to partner with other organizations, whether they're community services or social services or schools, businesses. It's important for us to come up with programming and opportunities to help to improve language skill. Like I want to point out here, Lincoln Literacy, that's an easy example. We have a great partnership with them where new Americans are coming into the library in programs or classes sponsored by Lincoln Literacy, but using library spaces. And we know that we can do a better job not only with that type of activity, but making sure that our spaces are open and free, and we get innovative with how we plan for making the most impact. I also want to call out that last bullet point, the removal of overdue fines has not resulted in an increase in late or non-return materials, and the library has seen an increase in new card holders. We put out a report in late 2023 after 1 year of removing overdue fines, which when we did that, we took a hit to our budget, but all for the better of thinking about how we're serving our patrons and how we're not serving patrons as well. So, and I just want to point out a few key observations from that study. The percentage of returned items, so items that had been checked out and never returned, we had marked them as lost. We tracked that just naturally every year. This percentage of returned items was higher in 22-23 than any of the previous 5 years, indicating that being fine-free most likely encouraged patrons to return materials, even if late, without worry of fines. This may also indicate a higher volume of return from previous years. There was also not a significant change in the percentage of items overdue. I think most people think that we charge fines because that's a way to motivate people to bring back things and bring them back on time. Maybe that was the case, but I think that going year to year, we discovered that what that did, some folks couldn't bring stuff back, some folks didn't bring things back, and some folks chose not to come back themselves. There was not a significant change in that percentage of items overdue. The percentage of overdue items at the end of 22-23 was 0.04% less than at the end of 21-22. And new library card registrations in 22-23 were the highest since 2016 and represented an 8.5% increase in new library accounts over the last non-COVID year of 18 and 19. And then perhaps one of the most significant outcomes the percentage of patron blocked accounts for both children and adults decreased. So it worked, and we're continuing to monitor our fine-free decision, but proudly, after 1 year and after keeping key stats, there was no significant negativity related to that move. I just want to mention that library funding every year in the budget is it's a big thing for our materials. As I mentioned, our media costs continue to rise, and we need to keep planning how we can tend to that, how we can improve it, and keep books on shelves, keep new books flowing in, and then keeping our bookmobile stocked when we go about town. Some of our signature events are One Book, One Lincoln. We're going to add an author visit this fall. That program is currently underway right now. We have 3 top titles that are being voted on all summer long. And at the end of that, this year we've, in this budget, set aside some dollars to help pay for that cost. Just want to go to our bookmobiles. So this was a request in the CIP a couple of years ago, and I want to. This is a big. Actually, last week was a big week. That was a long process to go through RFP and bids, and we got the notice from our vendor in Cincinnati that they received the order and it's underway. And the best part is that we had originally received notice that it was going to be an 18 to 24 month for these 2 new 24-foot Sprinter van vehicles, and instead we're expecting them back by late next summer. So quite a bit earlier. That allows us to begin planning on how we're going to change our service model for utilizing those 2 smaller, more nimble bookmobiles that will still visit sites in the city and the county, but also visit more pop-up events, go to schools, be able to pull in and easily maneuver around. And the best part, I look at this as a cost savings. We can rely on more staff to drive those vehicles. I don't need a CDL license to have those in action. Books and Basketballs, that's not a name of a real program, but it's kind of how we think of the important partnership that we have with the Air Park Rec Center, the new Williams branch in Northwest Lincoln. Reaches more people and adds to a safe and healthy city. We have expanded our hours there. We have a beautiful new building right next to the road, and there's sufficient signage on the building and next to the road that indicates to people who live right in that area that that's a public library, and it's accessible, and it's you don't have to wait until school gets out. You can go there earlier in the day, and I love pointing this out. So residents' visits to Williams this year has increased more than 100%. Now, I have to be honest, we were closed a little bit last year. But still, we're seeing good numbers, and it will be a huge increase over 22-23. Total usage, including program attendance, checkouts, and computer use, has increased 78%. Capital improvement projects, safety and security upgrades at our facilities are planned for 24, 25, and 25-26. Specifically, we are looking at a replacement fire alarm system and building security controls. And also in 25-26, we're looking at a new central library and branch improvements across the system. So we're continuing to work with our architects to plan on how best to approach that and to make sure that we have appropriate and necessary community engagement to help determine how that path will be laid out over the next couple of years. Some of our data that I think are important to note, libraries are busy places, especially here in Lincoln. COVID impacted us, but not quite as severely as libraries in other similar sized cities. A lot of that was due to the fact that we remained open for most of that time. We didn't have programs enforced, but we kept our doors open. But We're rebounding nicely from the impact of COVID. You can see in that first chart, the library visits. You can see the nice increases year to year. And we're still under that pre-COVID 2019 figure. Right now, for 22-23, our visits totaled 785,000. Our pre-COVID number is closer to 950,000. But we're inching back up there, and we expect to get back up there. Circulation, not impacted quite as much as library visits because even though our doors were open, people still had access to digital content. And you can see the steadiness there, slight increases over the last 3 years to get back up close to where we were pre-COVID at nearly 3 million checkouts. It's kind of small. I'm not sure if you can see that, but the circulation total, just to give you an idea, again, it's about 3 million a year. And physical items, just so you know the breakdown, physical items represents 2.1 million. And then the rest, or the most of the rest, 808,000 are downloadable materials. And every year that number continues to grow. Circulation by branch. Gear is our busiest branch at 36% of all checkouts happening at Gear. Next is Walt at 24%, Isley 14%, Bennett Martin 8%, Anderson 7%, and then followed by Bethany, South, and Williams branches. Event attendance, this is just to give you an idea of how busy our places are, and it's not all about books. It is about programming. It's about the libraries as spaces, as community gathering places, as places where people can connect. And we know that, again, we're stronger when we partner with other organizations and programmers. You can see that, actually, I can't see this. I have to zoom. Children's and teens programming attendance last year, 65,000. Adults, 18,000. And then attendance in our meeting rooms, so meeting room reservations, attendance. Thank you, 5,500. And then that last chart on the right-hand side is internet computer reservations. Certainly, it's a number that's gone down over the last 10 years, but especially here in Lincoln and at some of our other branches, for example, Bennett Martin, internet access is still a big service that the library provides. So with that, that's a high-level glance at the library and our budget for this year, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Councilman Shub.
Yeah.
Your microphone. Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Director, for coming forward. You started your presentation and it set me aback. I'm a big fan of Libby, and I use it. That makes me a little bit of the problem. But what I really want to ask the question is, which category in your spreadsheet of your personnel, materials and surprises, other services, capital outlay, where do those electronic measures?
Yeah, that's all. So all media, print and digital, falls under capital outlay.
Capital outlay. Thank you.
Yep. And I should say, I meant to mention this, that, you know, I said we try to balance it out. I mean, with those rising costs and that, you know, going up and the demand going up, we can't keep up. We're not alone. Other libraries face the same deal. But what we have to do is, for example, we have Hoopla too, and many of you may be familiar with Hoopla. Yeah, so it's another online version of checking out or downloading an ebook or e-content.
I like Hoopla.
The difference between Hoopla and Libby, Hoopla, that material, it's always available. You don't have to wait for it. It's always available. That makes it nice, but the library also pays per download. So, Council Member Washington, when you check out something or you download something,
yes,
we get a little bill for that, and it's like $3, $4, and we, you know, and that's the way it's always been. But in order for us to cope with some of these rising costs, we have to change our limits, change your checkout limits. So when we did this, matter of fact, just 3 or 4 months ago. So maybe now instead of 5 checkouts on Hoopla per month, it's 3. I think we actually did move it down to 3 or 4. Or we limit the cost, our purchasing based on the cost of that item. So anything over $5 now, we're not purchasing anymore. And another important thing to recognize is that with our overdrive, or Libby as it's commonly known, when we pay that much for an item, we're not buying it. Oftentimes we are leasing it. We're just getting the digital rights for that for a certain number of checkouts, sometimes 26 checkouts, or a certain number of months, just 12 months, 24 months. And once those checkouts are used up or those months have expired, then that drops from our collection, and we have to make that difficult choice. All right, how well did this circulate? Do we check it out? Do we buy it again? So it's added a layer of complexity and increased costs for us.
I noticed the number in your capital outlay went down, or it goes down each.
Went down a little bit, and part of that is because of our reliance or dependency on Keno funding, which is kind of, in this area of we expect it to go down, and that's where it impacts us a little bit. So we have to again, that's where we use that creativity to make sure that we're not harming or keeping that harm away from our users, our patrons, as much as possible with the decisions we make.
That's the concern that I have. When I see that we just talked about people using the resources, you being available to them, but now you're spending less on those resources because of funding restraints.
And it's important for us to make sure that we're communicating and advocating for and educating, like what I'm doing right now, but it's also important for us to work with our other funding partners too, to make sure that we're not, our overall budget is not being harmed.
Quality of service to
as
our
little
residents
as possible, at least. Right.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for letting me do that. Thank you, Director, for answering.
All right, Councilman Duden.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment, Ryan, that now the last 13 months now, I've used Gear Library for my town halls. And I think that's a great way to bring people into the facility. It's always clean. I always get a kick out of seeing the kids coming up to the counter with their books and what have you. And it's just it's been great for me to see that interaction and see how our libraries operate. So I think it's an indication that you're doing a good job. So thank you very much for doing that.
Well, thank you. And I always say that the vitality of a library is reflective of the vitality of a community. So, and Gear in all of our branches are perfect examples of that. Everyone loves their local neighborhood library here.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yep.
I have one question for you, and it's a little bit more of a forecasted question. I know that the library has a strong desire to replace the Bennett Martin Central Library. But when I look around the whole of the city and I look at how much Lincoln is growing, I am curious whether or not you see a geographic gap in library coverage.
I think we do, and I think that was a result of also that was discovered or found in our recent work, our community engagement work last fall. And matter of fact, I think that what we're looking at is, of course, trying to make sure that we're tending to our current facilities for needed improvements, for building refreshes, for figuring out downtown. But certainly the growth that we see in Southeast and Northeast, we need to think long-term for. And I think that over the course of the next couple of years, we'll have a better grasp of how we plan for those longer-term plans.
All right. Yep. Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
If there aren't any other questions, then again, thank you, and I'm sure some of us will be in touch with you individually.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
This presentation in the books.
All right. Let's put that in the books. Well, come on down. All right, Mr.
Come on,
McDowell.
TJ, let's go.
Thank you for that welcome, City Council. Here, Washington. TJ McDowell from the Mayor's Office. It's my pleasure to be here to talk with you a little bit about the Mayor's Office budget. I'm glad to be pitching at the end of the day for you. Appreciate all your patience and good work. So here's our vision, and you've heard yesterday a compelling case put out by the mayor about how this proposed budget helps us lead Lincoln to a more successful secure and shared future. And you're hearing today from our department directors who are working on that as well. And we believe our mayor's office budget is supporting that achievement of that vision as well. One of the great things about working in the mayor's office is that we get to collaborate with all the city departments towards achieving these outcomes that we believe are helping us cultivate the quality of life capital in the country. So you've heard from departments today, and you'll hear again tomorrow from departments who are making great progress on these outcomes, and I think they bear repeating because they're important. Safe and healthy city, economically and culturally vibrant city, strong and resilient, equitable and inclusive, innovative and operationally excellent city. And so those are the things that our budgets organize around, and our investments are designed to achieve those outcomes. We do them collaboratively with you and our department directors. Here's the mayor's office org chart. So first off, at the top, you'll notice it's Lincoln community members. Our budget, our services are in service to nearly 300,000 folks who live and work and play in Lincoln, Nebraska. So we're thinking about them when we're providing these services. Then it's our mayor, Larry and Gaylord Baird, and then there's 3 departments under the mayor's office, and that's what we're talking about when we're talking about our budget today. City communications, I'm going to talk a little bit more about city comms as part of this presentation. And then our Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act program, which is administered largely by our American Job Center, which we made some investments in last year that have really been borne some good fruit. And then the mayor's office. So that's our org chart. When you look, there's here's our expenditures. You can see, as you've probably heard from everybody today, personnel services are the largest percentage of our budget at 54%. And then the other big piece is other services and charges, which involve our administrative overhead expenses, rent and information services. And then also under this category, we have some grants with our workforce development to support those program offerings. You see a slight increase, about 1.4% over the 2 years. And here's where our funding sources. About 61% of our funding comes from general fund. We then also receive cable access funds, which are fees that are provided by cable service providers, and then our WIOA funds, which are as a federal grant that come through to support our workforce development activities here in the city. And what I want to talk about is sustained investments. We think this budget supports ongoing investments we believe are contributing to the high quality of life. And again, some of these are mayor's office specific, and some of them are investments you've heard other department directors make, but I think they bear repeating. First is our investments in economic development. We have the partnership with the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce on our Lincoln Partnership for Economic Development, LPED, which helps us recruit and retain and expand businesses. We invest about $700,000 per year. We're going to continue that investment. We've also invested in the last biennium, an economic development specialist who works with developers to support them in their processes and getting their permits and so forth. Then it's a really important partnership we have with Lancaster County with our Joint Budget Committee, commonly known as JBC, which supports human service agencies locally and serving our community. And then in this budget, you'll see, and you've heard already, that we're continuing our investment that we made. We started in the last biennium of $100,000 in early childhood and care, and early childhood education and care. So we feel like that's a really important investment. We want to continue to sustain that. The other thing is workforce development. One of the things that you probably heard is our workforce development. We've invested some of our ARPA funds on some new high demand, high wage, high skilled jobs, and one of those was the CDL. So we're have expanded the number of CDL licenses we help support. And one of the populations you might have seen is benefiting from that are folks who are coming out of incarceration. They're able to get the CDL while they're still incarcerated. When they come out, they're able to get a high-paying job. This budget also supports our continued efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. A couple of things we're doing there are the fleet conversion and the biochar. And then you've heard, as we talk about, from the departments, is this budget also supports our investments to make sure that we're investing equitably, using that as a frame for how we make investments, making sure that every quadrant of the city is benefiting in similar ways and equitable ways. And then also to make sure that we have robust community engagement about public projects. And as we know, this is the beginning of a robust community engagement process on this budget. The other thing is this budget, the larger city budget, supports some pillar projects that we think are really important for the city. South Haymarket Park, which you've heard a lot about, the Music District and downtown corridors, and those investments will continue to ensure we have a vibrant, exciting downtown. So now I want to talk just briefly about our city communications department. And here's that mission. What I want to highlight is in this mission, it says clear, accurate, and timely information for residents. That's what our comms team does. It supports your work. One of the important things they do is they live stream the city council meetings every Monday. It's very important work. They're live, and this meeting's being live streamed as well. And so that's really important to make sure our residents are informed and have access to information they need about city services. The responsibilities that come under the city comms team that, again, serves the whole city, works with all of our departments, works with the city council. Media relations, so they do news releases and news conferences about important city events and services. They maintain the website, design and content, which you know is very important as that's often the first place residents go to find information about city services. Social media, they also do that. I'm not on any social media, so I just have to trust that they're doing a good job with social media because I cannot verify that because I'm not on any social media accounts. And then our government access television, Link TV, which is broadcasting this, and then marketing, advertising, and printed materials. So there's responsibilities. Again, I showed you this org chart. This is where city comms falls on that org chart. In our city comms team, we have 9 FTEs, so 9 staff working to support that, and they're supported from a couple of different funding streams you can see there. I mentioned the website. In 23, 24, 1.4 million users. So a lot of residents and staff are checking out and going to the website for information. So we know that's a really important offering we provide to our community. Here's the social media outreach, which has grown pretty significantly. You can see over the last, from 2021 to 2023. Facebook, although I heard Facebook is going down in popularity, but it appears that it's still very popular with our residents. Twitter, over almost about 1.3 million users, and then significant growth in Instagram. So that is significant growth. It was referred to, somebody asked about lifeguards, and we use the social media campaign to help get lifeguards, and so we've got lifeguards and pools are all open now. And then, okay, I'm at the end there.
Oh, right out of good stuff.
Yes.
Does anyone have any questions?
I have 2 questions. You mentioned $100,000 going towards early childhood as an investment from the mayor's office at $100,000. Is that in addition to the $100,000 from the casino dollars, or is it? Oh no,
that's that same $100,000. Yep.
Second question that I had is, you mentioned city communications serves the entire city and all the departments. I guess city council really has not taken advantage of city communications in the past. So what services does city communications then offer to the city council that we could then use?
Yeah, I think our Chris Tribish is here, who is our new, I don't know if everyone's met our new Chief Communications Officer, Chris, but he's a great addition to our team, and he might be able to speak more about some of the services that are available.
Chris, all I can see is your legs.
I'll add a little bit of context. Currently, when it comes to we manage our own social media, we've struggled to write our own press releases. We have not had the same level of communication support that the mayor's office has had, right? And so I guess I was not aware that city communications was entirely open to the council. So what kind of services could the council utilize in your guys' department?
Yeah, well, part of our job is to, tell our city story. And so that's really kind of how I see the work of city comms. And so I've been on the job about 5 weeks, and so just trying to get everything in order in terms of how we structure ourselves. But I think there are a lot of ways in which we can help you, and would welcome the opportunity to talk more in depth about that. I think it's really kind of coming together to figure out what do we need to really let the public know. And so we're here to serve all of you. And so if there's anything that you need to from us to be able to do your jobs better and be able to represent your constituents, we're all ears, would welcome that conversation with you.
Awesome. I look forward to having, sorry, Margaret, I didn't mean to have my microphone off. No, I look forward to having a more formal conversation about that, because I think that there's a lot of good that could come out of that, and that would make our jobs a lot easier because we've been managing it all on our own.
Yeah, there's really a lot of great stories to tell in the city, and everybody's a part of it. You're all a part of it, obviously. And so we want to tell that story in a way that really showcases the work that everybody is doing each and every day to make the city great.
Any other questions? Councilman Weber?
Thank you, Chair Washington. TJ, I have a question for you. So you spoke a little bit under like greenhouse gas and emissions about the fleet conversion, and I was just wondering kind of the status of where that's at for the city of Lincoln.
Let me get back to you with a full report on that to give you some more details. But I know we're working to convert our city fleet to electric vehicles or alternative fuels. So I'll get back to you with an
thank
update
you.
on that.
That'd be great.
Yeah, you bet.
All right. Any other questions? Comments for the mayor's office? If not, Mr. McDowell, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your service.
Yeah. Oh, Director Heaton.
Hello, hello, and just want to make sure to not forget the city council budget, and so I was asked to just make sure to come up here, and I know our budget team did work with Councilman Beckius while he was chair in the development of the council budget as it's included in the mayor's proposed budget, and I just wanted to cover that with you, and so I'm making sure you can see what I'm seeing. I'm going to, you're aware of your own organizational chart, I don't need to, but this slide shows the funding source amounts proposed for fiscal years 24-25 and 25-26. The city council, they are seeing it, so I don't know. Okay. I will go back. Well, this is really where it all starts in any event, but yeah, great. This slide shows the funding source amounts proposed for fiscal years 24-25 and 25-26. The city council receives all of its funding from the general fund. The slide does not include the unused carryover amounts from prior years, which would be available in addition to the amounts shown here, and that's approximately $288,000 currently. As shown, the budget for the upcoming biennium was adjusted to reflect the salary and fringe benefit costs of the city council secretary position as of September 2023, and then adjusted for COLA increase estimates that were provided for the next 2 years by Human Resources. The council's budget shown here was also adjusted to account for any changes to internal service fund charges from information services, risk management, and the Public Building Commission rent. And here is the FTEs, and it shows the city council secretary position as a budgeted full FTE. And with that, I don't know that I'd have answers for you on your own budget today, but we would invite you, if you have questions, to reach out to Sherry, myself, the budget team, and we'd be glad to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, I believe that we probably will.
Great, great.
Yeah, I'm just listening to the tone of what other councilors are discussing, so I think that we may.
You bet.
All right, thank you so very much.
Yeah, and just maybe to wrap up for today, we have one last slide, and I know it's been a long afternoon for you, so thank you for your time and attention. And do you have any questions for the group for today? And then we'd be glad to have that conversation, and we'll be here for a little bit yet, but we'll also just see you tomorrow and look forward to sharing more about what the city departments are doing.
I'm all worked up for tomorrow.
All right, perfect.
The last question that we had about fleet conversion, I know that you've got a fleet manager in your shop, and I know LTU's presenting tomorrow. If there was a way for us to get some of those fleet numbers when Director Elliott.
You're interested in conversion to alternative sources and EVs and things
sort of the
that
rate
nature.
of conversion. Where are we?
You bet. We'll get that information for you.
Did I capture your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to know the general status of where we're at with that and where we're going forward. Yeah.
You bet.
I guess I just had one, I don't know if it's a question or comment about the city council budget. We just reviewed the mayor's budget. That's proposed to be operating in 1 year at a little under $4 million. Our budget is about $300,000. That seems like a pretty big discrepancy for a separate branch of government. We've heard a lot from the different departments. This is my fourth budget cycle, I think, where, the city's grown by the size of, I think it's like Grand Island or whatever over the past 10, 15 years. And the city council seems to be like one of the few departments that has remained exactly the same. And so I just feel like that's worth pointing out, that as we hear from the TJ with the mayor's office, you know, we think about how we can serve all 300,000, and our department is spending about $1 per person to provide services. And I think that's worth a further conversation.
Absolutely, yeah. It's much more than a part-time job.
And I think, yeah, that's what residents expect, and I think that's what residents are aware of, that they expect that we're here full-time, and I don't know if we have the resources and supports to be able to do our jobs at this current time.
Well, I think we're all aware that the job that we ran on and is a part-time job. I realize the hours aren't part-time. We're paid the way the city and the residents have asked us to be paid. And if we were to balance ourselves or look at ourselves against other electeds in the state, we'd find out that we're just in the middle.
I mean, I'm not even just talking about salary, right?
Yeah.
I'm talking about
Yeah,
like
I know, but
support staff. I mean, we've heard Omaha be used as another, I mean, I don't know what's funny, but I mean, like we've seen Omaha be used as a model for some of our other departments, and, you know, they have a much more robust staff. And I know that it's difficult for folks, regardless of what our salary is, for us to do our jobs when we don't have that same support to be experts on all things.
Your point is taken, and I realized that when we made that vote a few years ago, I was on the other side of the ledger. I thought that fiscal conservancy, yes, made sense at the time. Other folks were making cuts, but we can open that conversation up and discuss what makes sense moving forward. And if no other comments, then we have bought ourselves about 17 minutes, and we'll close today and come back tomorrow at noon. Thank you.